viral in like 3 days, and I can tell you like how viral they went, and it's always fun to experience. But it's kind of the thing where it's like after a while you kind of just get it and you don't use it anymore.
Gotcha. We're live, by the way.
Okay.
Welcome everyone to the Whitepill podcast. Today I have Jaivin pouring some tea.
Hello.
I'm hoping.
Oh yeah, sorry. This is some water.
I was really hoping for that. So what a hell of a way to start the stream. How do I pronounce it?
No, it's beautiful.
Is it Jaivin? Jaivin?
It's Jaivin.
Jaivin. Gotcha. Yeah, just want to make sure I got that right.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for taking the time to come on today. I mostly just like first encounter that I ever had like on the timeline of you was in your Aura days when you started that whole trend of
that was
analyzing.
crazy.
Yeah, first analyzing the accounts for people, which I thought was interesting because like you're just doing like a vibe check essentially, like that's all that it was, and then eventually like it became to this app. So like what was there like an idea beforehand? Like did you know, like, do you have a vision for all this where it was gonna go, or you just kind of went with it?
I usually have a vision, but this one kind of just came together, and I was just following the flow. Like what I was trying to do at this time, I had like a lot less followers. And this was in August, and I just started posting in August, where I was like, I would always just kind of lurk with 300 followers. But I was trying to like try to spark something that I noticed people like to try to grow. So that was what I kept trying to do. And the aura checks was like a really funny thing that I noticed people liked when I did them manually. And I did plan on making like a website for it. But I wanted the website to actually do the same kind of like drawings that I do. And I was like kind of thinking bigger scope. And then Tuna actually he cashed at me $10 for aura consulting. And then I made like a very like advanced post about it. And then that started getting a lot of likes. So as like a reaction to that, I very quickly made Auralized, and then it started blowing up. So that's kind of the series of events that happened.
Interesting, because actually but right before you were the interview guest, I actually had Tuna on just 2 days ago for the pod. I'm surprised I didn't bring it up. But is it so? This post right here, I forgot to share my screen with you. Let me just get this done. Give me 1 second. Because otherwise you don't know what the stream looks like, and that is no fun. Okay. There we go. Okay, should be able to see it now. So this post right here is that like, was that the initial launch point essentially?
Yes, this was, yeah. Because then you see like on the replies, the moment that I buy the domain, and then it like 9 hours later, it'll show the launch post under it. So it's like a series. It's just like a progression, basically.
Yeah, and then obviously Vittorio chimes in, and then everything else just fucking rolls.
Yeah.
Oh, David from fucking Midjourney? Holy shit.
Yeah. There's a lot, dude. Like, he's kind of my friend now.
Oh, yeah?
He's a really cool dude, yeah.
That's awesome. Oh, wow.
Because there's just so much that happened. Like, since this point, since Auralized, there's just, like, insane amount of things that has happened.
So this is your origin story, per se?
Yes.
Okay. So what
I have
what
many,
happened,
dude, because there's even things beyond, like, before I even started Twitter. Like, I have a big TikTok account. I was doing that for a long time, and then I was doing other projects just all the time, so.
How big did the TikTok account get?
It got to 100K, but I stopped posting on it.
Interesting. So where did you go from here, having learned the lessons from how desperate people were to get oralized?
After this, I was like, riding the highs. So I built it in 9 hours, and the website actually never really shifted from that one point. Um, and then I stayed up a total of 30 hours after that to try to like just um capture that wave because it was really an insane spark after that happened. And I kind of ran with this idea of Aura Consulting, and I put up like a Stripe link where people can pay. I moved it to like $50 where they can pay to like get me to give advice on their Twitter. And I would basically just advise them on like what I think they should do to grow, like optimize their profile to make it
Mm-hmm.
more like recognized or something. Um, and then I was writing that way because when someone would post, I mean, when someone would pay me that amount, I would post about it because it's kind of like a meme in itself of like, um, no way someone just bought $50 for Aura Consulting. So that became a bit of a meme. And then I would increase the price. I increased it to $100 and someone bought it and then I posted it. And then I did 150 and someone bought it and I posted it. And then I did 200 and like 8 people still bought that like at that price. Um,
Whoa.
yeah, it was kind of crazy. And I remember like in that moment that I stayed up, um, I got to like $800 before I went to bed, or something like this. And I was like planning crazy amounts of stages after. Like I had a Discord server, and I brought in a few of my Twitter friends to like be moderators. And but like I was trying to start to delegate consulting, and I was trying to like give people commissions, and I was trying to set up like all these different things. Um, yeah, but then I didn't like fully do it. I didn't do any of that because I had like a gig that I was doing as a co-founder. And that took up my time, but I'm just
Wow.
yapping.
No, no, this is good by all means, dude. Yap away. You have the floor. That is incredible. Wow. Okay, so you like it just started as an idea, snowballed, and then eventually you're like, shit, like this could actually be something. And then you just like planned out this whole like architectural like infrastructure behind like what the actual plan is gonna be. You're gonna outsource the consulting to
Yes.
other people too. That's wicked.
Yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
I wanted to. I always have a vision for things. Like I always try to see what's the end state that they can be in. Um, and I saw two paths. I saw like one path is like an opinionated Twitter analytics tool, and then the other one was this consulting, like with human labor. I like software a lot. Um, so, but I was reacting to like this meme that people would like spend money on the consulting. So I just kept doing that for a bit.
Yeah, it's interesting. Did you, like, from the consulting, did you actually see that a lot of people, the feedback that they were giving you, that it was like, it wasn't just like slop advice, like you actually like did have
Yeah,
certain things like on point?
yeah. Like, um, I like before I made this post and Tuna paid me, I gave him a Google Doc on like an in-depth analysis on like what his account is about, and like this is me improving it in that post, and
Mm-hmm.
he still keeps it that way, I think. Um, but yes, he was like, "This is really good advice," and a lot of people actually keep my recommendations um, after like all this time, and they say that they were like pretty good. So yeah,
That's impressive. That's, I mean, just off like sheer vibes alone, you were able to innuate a lot of these things. Wow.
mm-hmm.
That's pretty wicked. And yeah, I mean, just like looking at Tuna's profile now, it's changed slightly, but since the initial aura reading, like it's changed a lot. So
Yeah,
clearly, it's working.
yeah.
Wow, that's impressive. Okay, so where did you go from here then? Like, is it just immediately into thinking like, what are all these additional other tools that I can build to kind of like socially engineer this engagement?
um, I don't see it as that fully. I see it as more of like more taste to it. But um, after Oralized, I I was like a co-founder with this dude, and it was kind of a I don't know. It was we didn't really know exactly what we were like doing, and we never really launched anything together. Um, we did do a party, but that was like a small part of all this stuff.
Just
Um,
like an actual like in-person party.
yeah, it was called the Luckiest Party, and it
Oh
was
yeah, I
mainly.
remember. Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. And then people came, and there was like casino tables, and we bet on black on roulette, and it was pretty fun. But um, yes. So then after that party, we parted ways, and we went on our own and just doing our own things. And then let me see. I had a roommate that we had a really bad and quick falling out, um, where he got upset with me, and he like didn't face me at all, and he just left. And we didn't talk about like, and we had no conversation. Um, and then like next day he just kind of like left the Airbnb and said to cancel it.
Hmm.
Um, so I needed to very quickly like find a new place to live. um, and I had no income because um, yeah, like the basically the thing that I had, I was getting paid for it. So like, yes, that's how I live. That's how I was able to live. But with
Hmm.
this stuff now, I needed to find a place to live, and I also needed to make money. So so yes, that's when I made the two new tools. Now, reply placer, like that's very much a engagement farm thing.
Hmm.
Um, map is more of like an oralized thing where it's just I put a lot of care into polishing it. Um, and this one went like 5 times more viral than oralized. Like this got 500,000 people to use it in like 3 days.
Whoa.
And it also made 2.5K, but from transactions instead of like consulting Stripe links.
Hmm. Interesting. So the timeline, as you put it, you had oralized, then the party, that issue
Mm-hmm.
with the roommate, and now you're stuck between a hard place, a rock and a hard place, and you're like, all right, fuck it, let's go all in on this, and then you just keep pumping out more and more of these tools.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Reply placer, like when I did that, that was the first one, and I was like, okay, I made this really actually hard interaction of like being able to like drag profile pictures onto images and like scrape every single one. I think it's almost break even with how much it costs. But I did it as like a tool, um, and it didn't really work super well because I don't know, like big accounts would do it, and there's just not enough of like a viral loop to get more and more people to try it.
Hmm.
It's more like an account buys it, and they kind of buy it for all of their followers. So all their followers get roasted based on where they're placed. Um, so yeah, and it costs like $7 for 3 uses, but it basically didn't really work that well, and it got maybe $200 worth of sales. So after this, I started to think about map, and I designed it closer to oralized. Um, this time, there's a lot that was different though, but the one concept that worked was the viral loop of like someone tries it, they share it for some reason, which there's reasons why like people do anything. So there's insight there, but um, someone else sees what they shared and then they try it themselves. So like the share loop is like super clean. On mobile, like clicking share the in any like circumstance will work. Also, like there's like a 30% chance that it replies to you
Hmm.
or quote retweets you. Like there's a lot of like depth to the sharing to make it optimized. And yeah, I'm just like trying to get the loop down this time, and it worked well.
Yeah, it because it is an interesting like form of not social engineering. I don't know like what other word I would use to describe it. But of just kind of gaming social engagement, because the only other equivalent that I could think of when I saw you creating these things, because I'm not aware of anyone else on Twitter that has done anything like this to the extent that you have,
Hmm.
and gotten this amount of engagement. The only close comparison that I have would be like all those like Facebook or like BuzzFeed quizzes to find out like which kind of quiche you are, or
Hmm.
like what the favorite color of your favorite superhero, or like just asinine bullshit like that. Um, but I'm even that is like it doesn't really compare to what kind of initiative that you're doing here, because here you're actually taking into account like the individual and their reactions, because once you like post your I don't your dog's favorite color or some shit, like there's no depth to that. But if you are placed on like this map here, right, you can compare with your friends how like autistic or
Hmm.
locked in
Hmm.
or like whichever word they are. So there's a level of like interaction there. It doesn't just like stop at like, oh, check out this result I got. That there's an extra layer that kind of helps that engagement to go on.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I would call it kind of like a mimetic website,
Hmm.
um, because I think it's really based on that, and it is similar to a lot of things. Like BuzzFeed quizzes are mimetic in the sense that you want to kind of it'll create a curiosity gap or like a curiosity itch, and you want to scratch it. Um, and there's probably a lot more little things to it, but I I like rely on the same kind of urges for these things.
Yeah, and in terms of those tools, what was the last one that you built here?
Oomph map.
Oh, it was oh, okay. So all of these were already
Yeah.
they're here, like the robo highlights and whatnot. Okay, gotcha. Actually, oh, this one might come in handy for me. Oh wait, no, this isn't. I remember I was exploring your page. This is a project that you used to develop, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. No more though.
Yeah. It's there's a long history of like losing the code for this. So I totally lost it now.
Damn, that's too bad. Right as I was starting my show too, man. Fuck. Oh well. Oh well, that's okay. We'll find something. Um. Okay, so all this in hand, because we talked a little bit off the pod. You were saying that like the engagement is essentially fallen off at this point, because at least from my understanding, like these kind of tools, you kind of have to like refresh them, find a different like landscape, change
Yeah.
something here and there, because they don't really have as much lasting power.
Yeah.
What do you see next? Having what do you see next for yourself, having learned all of this? Do you think that you would like continue to like having these kind of pet projects? Is there any that you have that you're working on right now?
Yeah. So a lot has changed actually. Um. Yeah. With Oomph map, like Oralize makes no money because I think it was very much a meme based uh price point. I actually took it off too because like I don't want to be asked to give consulting anymore. But but with OomphMap, it was making like 500 a day, and then it tapered off to 50 a day. And when I added a subscription, that increased the average price of a customer. Um, and it was getting like after the hype, it was getting like 2 subscriptions a day.
Mm.
And I was planning a few things to fix it, where like instead of text labels, it uses image labels. And I kind of launch again, and I launch, but by like almost partnering with different Twitter accounts in different niches of different parts of Twitter, having them create a map and then like posting about it. So because I think Oomph Map is like a formula that would work, and the maximum scale is more like 5 million because it reached 500,000. Um, like there's another like one of these sites that scaled to 5 or 6 million, and then made like 100K, and most of that was from Japan.
Holy
So
shit.
that's kind of like that. That's like the holy grail of these kinds of Twitter websites. Um, Now, having said all of that, like your question of like, what am I going to do now after learning all this? I actually, what these things are, I call them trinkets. These are kind of just like little individual software tools or like websites. Um, and all my friends kind of make trinkets, and I've basically give them like the perfect term to use for what these are. So now all my friends use that term, which is funny. But what I've realized is actually it's very good to like kind of refine your skills, and I got good just by having two things that I like really. I went through the whole design process of like sketching it out, and then like and then in that designing it and then building it and then launching it like 2 times. Even that is like really good at just flexing your skills. um but like I still think there's some potential because like I have the subscription now, so it kind of unifies everything, and there's more ideas I have about um kind of making like a shop, and letting other people like get into it and collaborate with me. And there's like potential there of making like an ecosystem platform. Like I think there's always potential in everything, but um that's a different kind of game. And I realized I think I should really, for the next thing that I do, um I think it should be like something I really focus deeply on for a couple years, as a startup. So that's kind of where my head's at now. Um, and then there's like something else that happened, which was like from all this stuff, um, Lambda Labs reached out to me. Like, I don't know how much I can say, but someone high up in the leadership, like, just DM me on Twitter, do you want a job? And I was like, okay. Started interviewing with them. And then I kind of skipped like all the technical interviews, and then they just speed ran me into the job. So I'm doing that for a little bit, and I'm on a research team, so an ML research team. So I'm just gonna right now I'm actually making them a trinket. Um,
Oh,
yes.
how much can you say about that?
Well, not too much, but it's gonna launch like under them, but it's gonna be just basically a Jaivin trinket, and you'll know, like everybody will know about it because I'll like promote it because it's my work, but
Mm-hmm.
it'll be like another viral website, but it has much more of an AI twist to it, because they're an AI cloud, um, and they have like AI specific products. So yeah, that's the first thing I'll do. But after that, I want to go deep into ML research. Like all my colleagues in that place are, most of them actually, basically all of them that are in the office are PhDs right now. Um, and one guy is pretty cracked, and I want to like learn a lot from him. So yeah, I mean, right now I'm in my current stat or state. I'm pretty much just about to go heads down. I've already started to like learn different languages. Like I'm using Elixir right now, which is fun, um, for this new trinket. But I've never had the opportunity to, or the time to like step back and kind of learn. Um, so yes, we're doing a trinket right now, and then I want to go deep into research and just try to learn a lot, and gain like a technical insight that's a secret that I can like, that not many people know about, that I can form a startup on.
Interesting. That is quite the path. Because when we were off the call, you mentioned that like, or maybe it was the beginning of the stream. I don't remember at this point, but you said that you never went to college, so you went out of
Yes.
high school,
Yes.
just kept doing stuff, and
Yeah.
now you're working at. Well, it's not like a stealth launch startup, but from my understanding, they keep things pretty close to the vest. Um,
Hmm.
and you're rubbing shoulders with fucking PhDs about to lock in. That's incredible, man. That's one hell of a come up.
Yeah. We're out the hood.
Well, yeah, you made it out the hood. You oralized your way out the hood with this one. That's amazing,
Yeah.
man. Hats off to you.
Thank
Um,
you.
and you're making a trinket for them. That's interesting. I'm really looking forward to that.
Hmm.
But before we get off that topic, your work actually reminded me of not sure if you know this guy Keon. Um, he's been doing kind of like similar engagement kind of stuff like on Twitter with a little bit of a
Hmm.
different twist. He's more manual with it, so he's been streaming for the last couple of weeks, building out Pokemon cards for people. But they're not just like based on like some like shitty, X palm read, whatever. He'll actually like he'll go into the profile, look at like your last posts, like ask for your stats, and actually do like a just like a quick analysis of like why is it that you're not able to engage with as many people? Why is your reach not as strong as it needs to be? Is there anything something like about
Hmm.
your bio? So he's kind of like offering the oralizer thing, just in a different kind of context, and he's obviously doing a lot of the stuff manually. But yeah, I just wanted to shout him out. I think he's in the stream here. So
Nice.
doing something similar to you might be worth checking out. But that's
Oh yeah, I know him. I like him.
oh, you know him? Oh, okay. So you know, I figured.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah, so with Landwood, that is that is wild. I don't think I've ever seen someone just do stuff their way to the top like that before.
Hmm. You can just do things.
You can just do things. I'm starting to learn that.
Hmm.
Um, so before all this, you even said like you've had like several other like origin stories of you just doing stuff and seeing where it leads to.
Yeah.
Where else has this kind of like instinct paid off for you?
Um. Let me see. Well, I mean, definitely. Okay. Well, one of them is it. Like I finished high school when I was 16 because I found a test that you could take, and my parents were on board with letting me like take it and getting out.
You lucky
So that
fuck.
was the first thing.
Lucky
Yeah.
fuck. I wish I got out at 16. Are you kidding me? Fuck.
Yeah. I really hated high school. I wanted to drop out, but um they would not let me. So like that was the first strat. I did fun things like in that school, like um maybe I shouldn't mention like early days, like getting the admin password for the computers, like that stuff.
Yeah.
Um that was fun. Okay, but then when I was 14, I started Robo highlights, and then when I was 16, I started Waifu decks. Um, these were the two first things that I just started building, and Robo highlights after like maybe 2 years started going really viral. Um, and every video would be like a banger, and it would like just get a lot of views, and it's because I started to edit the thumbnail and title. For the longest time I tried to make that automated, um, but that was very fun because I think when it started really working, I like just got out of school, and every video was like getting hundreds of thousands of views, and like my like past 28 days on YouTube was like millions of views, and the high was insane. But then this was not monetized actually. So
Oh, how come?
monetizing later, I found out, okay, there's a lot of hate, and I was like a just a kid, and I was like, this is fucking sucks. And I felt bad about monetizing actually.
Hmm.
um, I did later though, and I made like $400, but I saw that the CPM was $5, and it got 10 million views, so that would have been like $50,000 if it was monetized at that rate. Um, so that was the first kind of just like, okay, that was like a taste of success maybe. Um, then I quickly did like I worked on a prototype because I wanted to learn more about like ML stuff. So I made waifu decks, and the first version of it was a prototype where it would embed anime characters and put them in an interface where I can rate them, and then based on that rating, it would train a model and then predict what I would rate like a future character that it saw. and then from that it would recommend overall shows based on the characters. Um, and it worked, but it was in like Python, and I wanted to scale it up, and I posted that on Twitter, and my Twitter had like nothing on it at this time, but that post got like 200 likes. So for me, I started to work on it more because I was like, this is pretty good. There's some reaction to this, and there was like a reporter that wanted to talk about it, and I was like, oh, let me work on this.
Interesting.
So, and then I started doing this one, and I did this one for the longest time, and now there's kind of bugs on it, like that thing is supposed to cycle back to real words, but it just is fucked up now. Like there's bugs on it because the code base is a very much a mess, and it's hard to add stuff to it now. But I learned a lot through this, and I worked on this for 4 years, but until I was 20, and then I came to SF like right after I turned 21, and then I stopped on this project, and then started doing like more things here in SF. But yes.
So with SF, this idea that you had coming here or there rather, was it just like I'm coming here with ideas in a dream, or did you actually like have something lined up?
Yeah, not a job. Because I'm very much like a founder. Even though I have a job now, I actually don't like jobs still. Yeah, eventually I like it's just I'm better. I don't feel too happy or proud, weirdly. But I think I'm best like positioned just doing my own thing. So eventually I'll do that again. But um, let me see. I kind of forgot what you said. Oh,
I was I was
did
just
I
saying
come
like
to SF?
yeah,
Yes. Okay.
with a
So
dream if it was premeditated.
yeah, basically, it was like it was a combination of really hating my home, like my family home life situation. Like it wasn't that bad, but it was just things that kind of drove me crazy. Um, that it was just I was just not having fun there. Um,
Hmm.
and then I went to for when I turned 21, I went to my friend's house for like 2 weeks, and that was a time that I can just escape, and that was really fun. And then I came back home, and I was like, "Fuck this." And then my friend, that was into like kind of startup stuff, was like, "Dude, let's go to San Francisco for 6 weeks and build something." So I think in 2 weeks we kind of like figured out what we're gonna build, and we set off to like try to do it. Um, and he's from the UK, and I'm from LA, so it's easy for me to just go there. He had to like be on an ESTA and all this.
Yeah,
Um,
all the visa stuff. Yeah.
yes. So then we went, and this was Spidey. I don't know if it's still up, but it's Spidey.ai, like Spider-Man but with a Y.
Oh
Oh, it
yeah.
is. Okay, so this is what we put together, um, and and it was going as math test prep gamified,
Hmm.
and we would sell to like parents and students basically. Now we kind of got to the point where we did like a lot of okay, we did things that I actually now don't agree with, or I just don't do anymore. But we talked to a lot of customers and like a customer discovery thing, but we spent a long time on it, and we kind of went in circles. Like if you're writing blind, I think customer discovery is good. But if you have any intuition and you kind of have an idea about what people like, um, nowadays I just follow that because it's just so much faster. But we did like kind of research like what is the niche and like where do we fit, and talk to people. And I don't know how qualified like their answer is, but like they said that they would like this thing. When I got hired, they mentioned Spidey a lot. They were like, "Oh, this is so good." Like, um, I would use that for my kids. Something, something,
Hmm.
something. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think it was interesting. And then I started making like a PWA for it. Um, and that is like somewhat built out,
PWA?
but
What's that?
a progressive web app.
Okay. Keep in mind,
So,
I'm not in the developer space. I don't think
oh,
I've ever
okay,
written like a single line of code.
I see.
So
Okay,
yeah,
so
yeah. I'm just trying to keep up with all the terms, but I understand like half of the stuff. But anyways, go ahead.
okay, yeah. So this is just like it's a website that you can download as an app,
Oh, okay,
and
okay.
yes, it's like it's not really commonly used, so you have to kind of educate people how to do it. Um, so it's interesting, and I think unfortunately I think they're really hard to get working just because you have to go against like everybody's idea of like what an app is. But
What do you
by
mean by
doing
that?
that, you kind of get around like the Apple tax. But it doesn't really feel like an app. Um, because everybody's used to just going to the app store to download an app and use an app in that context.
Mm-hmm.
And if they want to use a website, they use their browser app. But a website that you have to get the app from going to the website by following instructions on the website is just weird. No one does it. Um, so yeah, I think the app store is like gonna win for a long time.
I see. So and when you say because my background is in sales primarily. So when you're talking about like getting customer feedback, I can understand how challenging that could be. How did you actually get like these people? Were you just hanging around like schoolyards, just like hoping to catch parents as they're collecting their kids, or like how did
Oh
you
my
find
god.
these groups?
Um, well, okay. So me and my friend would go to cafes and talk to people. Um, Mainly like students, like people that were our age. Um, and that was one way. That was, in my opinion, that's if you're gonna do it at all, like okay, there's a lot to the business model that we thought of. At first, we were thinking like make it gamified math homework, for students.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is tough though because a student themselves doesn't want to like gamify their homework. They just want to cheat and get the answer. So, if you want to build a product like that, if you still want to, you have to sell to parents, which is like what we very quickly realized. Um, and that's a whole different ball game because now like you're building for the student, but have to then also talk to the parent to like try to see. You have to fit two parts of the market. You have to fit the what the actual student wants and like gets value out of, but you have to also build for the parent and show them like statistics or something that they see, um, and value your tool. So
Mm-hmm.
like that's just a lot harder. So then we pivoted to kind of like math test prep. Um, and the idea with that is it's more of a quicker like return on investment. Like you want to pay for something to like help you memorize your SAT or something, or just practice for it in a way that doesn't bore you. So that's what we were going to do after, and talk straight to students. And we made content for students, which didn't really work well, but we did get some interest, and I think there was something there. Like as usual with anything, you can take it farther and farther, and you'll get closer to actually it working. So I think it would have worked, but after 6 weeks, he went back to the UK, and I very quickly like found a place to like a way to make money, and I stayed here. Um, and then yeah, we kind of parted ways, and we stopped working on this.
Gotcha. And with those 6 weeks, would that have coincided with? Because I see the post here on the page. Would that have been for the Build Space S5, like the season 5? Is that what you guys were going for?
Um, Not exactly. Though Build Space actually got us out to SF because we saw their content from he was from the UK and I was from LA, and we saw the Build Space content and we're like, yeah, that's pretty sick. Um, Turns out like I actually know so much about SF now, and I know all the spots. Build Space is like not the coolest spot, and they're also shut down now. But we didn't really do it for build space, because we already worked on it, and then build space just happened, and we were like, okay, let's put it in there also. um, But this was near the end of our trip, so like yeah, it kind of we didn't do build space either.
I see. Yeah. No, I only mentioned it because I this past summer when they were doing their season 5, I had signed up for it because it was I was having like the beginnings or the initial ideas that would lead like to this show and podcast and the whole White Pill project. Because when I heard of it, I was like, oh, this is amazing. Anyone can join. There's no barrier to entry besides having an idea. It doesn't even have to be within the developer space either. You could just do something creative, like even something
Mm-hmm.
like a music video or what have you. And they were all welcoming and just very. I don't know. The whole thing just like seemed geared towards getting as many people with as many interesting ideas in as big a space as possible, so they could just build off of one another. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to participate. My family decided to take an impromptu trip to SF, actually, of all places.
Hmm.
I'd never been to the States, so it was like the first time going there. It was very interesting. I kind of saw what I expected to see in SF because we were. Let me see if I can actually even pull it up. We ended up staying. Let's see here. We ended up staying in like this region, basically.
That's not good. That's not
That's
the good area.
no, it's not. It
Did you
really
see my
isn't.
death map? I made a
Um,
death map of SF.
let me see if I can pull it out. Oh, this,
Oh, it's
yeah.
there.
I
That is the bad spot.
I don't know if I ended up commenting, but when I saw this post, I was like, "Fuck, man!" Yeah, I was literally like right here. We were posted up at the there's a famous hotel here. I forget the actual name, but yeah, we were like literally within this region when I went. So anyways, long story short, I ended up going to SF. I couldn't do build space.
Mm.
Um, Beautiful city, just that whole region. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that
could.
spot is not good.
Yeah, I even I told my family like before going there, I was like, guys, like I get that like you know that we want to have fun here, but like we're literally gonna be in the place where you cannot walk at home at like at night alone. Like you
Mm-hmm.
cannot, or even during the day. Jesus fucking Christ! Like you got to be real careful. Like I remember first day we stepped out of the hotel, we're going to the what's it called, to the ferry to go to oh my god, I'm drawing a blank. The prison. How did I forget the name?
The Alcatraz.
Yes, yeah. We're going the Alcatraz tour, and we're going out of the hotel. We pass a corner store, and the first thing we see is this guy robbing it, just like like
Damn.
walks in, grabs a bunch of shit, walks out, starts yelling at the shopkeeper. It's like 6 a.m. I'm like, Jesus
Mm.
fucking Christ, man! I'm getting the whole SF experience here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was wild. What since your time in SF, I'm guessing you're still there, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. What would you say is like the most depraved thing you've seen so far?
Well, a few, dude. Like, I actually don't know why SF is the place. Like, why couldn't have been just okay? Well, the place itself is actually great. It's not, or it's not. It's not bad. I don't know why there's so many like crazy homeless people. That's like just crazy sad. Um, and yeah, it just doesn't feel taken care of, the inner city. Um, but the place that I work is actually a very nice area in the center of the financial district. Um, so it's nice there, but okay. I saw like a girl, like just some kind of like sus, more like a homeless person, like basically just squat down and just you know
They just took a shit just right there in the street.
yeah, like that was something. And then um another thing that happened was I was like, we're just walking on the street, like on the sidewalk, and then talking to a friend on the phone, and this dude walks past me, and I don't make eye contact, and the second he gets right next to me, and I'm on the phone, he like quickly moves his head in front of me and just screams, and it scares the fuck out of me. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, this tweaker just like um screamed in my face, and then he just walked off like nothing happened. So yes, and then there's also like a moment where um I'm going to get food, and I have to walk through like a zombie horde. Like, I'm not joking. Like both sidewalks, imagine both sidewalks just being completely packed with homeless people. Where like it's just I don't know how it gets that bad. So
Yeah, I mean, I've seen endless videos like this, where
and then people
people,
walk their dog too. Like that's crazy to me. I've seen this.
yeah,
Like this is
it's
not even it. This is I actually know where this is. I live near that. This is
y-
not even that bad. It
no,
just gets way worse than this.
yeah, the tents on the sidewalk here, that's fairly common from what I remember.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, look, from everything that I know, and I'm Canadian, so like I don't have as much of like an on the ground understanding of what's happening in the U.S., but just from everything that I've seen, part of it is like there's obviously neglect. Another part of it is that apparently a lot of these NGOs and these charities that work within the homeless treatment space, a lot of the money goes to admin costs and salaries instead of the actual treatment.
Hmm.
So that's also a problem. And then with the mandatory minimum sentencing that they've removed, they've made it so that essentially, I think if you rob or if you steal products that are less than, I think it's either 1,500 or 2,000 US, you just get like a slap on the wrist and then they just let you go. If it's over that
Hmm.
amount, then you
I
get
think they
sentenced.
removed that recently.
Oh yeah, oh that's good.
Yeah.
That's a step in the right direction. Um,
Yeah, but everybody was like, why the fuck was that even there? To me, it makes no sense. I don't know why.
I guess I would chalk it up to progressive politics, but I mean, even here in Canada, we have our own kind of similar issues with it, where
Mm.
they got rid of mandatory minimums for auto theft. It used to be before our current administration, before Justin Trudeau became prime minister, that it was an automatic, I think, like maybe 5 or 10 year sentence for auto theft, and
Hmm.
when once they removed that, it like skyrocketed to the point where we actually had like celebrities and athletes getting carjacked in like the middle of
Mm.
downtown, um, which is fucking wild. But yeah, I mean, like of all the
Damn.
cities like in NSF where like we're essentially we're expecting to see AGI come out of, right? Like that's kind of the talk of the town from my understanding, and yet
Hmm.
on the other hand, it has just the most rampant, like the homelessness and absolute just decay of human spirit on full display for everyone to see. And then all these like tourist centers and whatnot. It's just it's a wild mix. It's a wild fucking mix.
Hmm.
Very interesting. Do you think that you'll stay in SF throughout your time, or do you think you'd like to go elsewhere in America?
Um, I I think I'll stay in SF for a little bit because I made a lot of friends here, and I just signed a 12-month lease with roommates. So I'm gonna move on the weekend actually. So
Oh,
like
nice.
maybe a little bit today and tomorrow. Um, so I'll stay here for a good amount of time. Um, but then I think once I like build my first big swing and make money from it enough to like kind of chill, I might travel a bit, and I might try out different cities like New York or something. Or Austin is. I had some friends that moved to Austin, so I think Austin's also popping off right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I heard that Elon Musk is starting to build, uh, like an entire facility, if it hasn't been built already for
Mm-hmm.
XAI, and that there's a lot of
Mm.
noise moving there. And also like I think they've moved SpaceX to
Yeah.
Texas as
Basically, he
well.
moved all of his companies basically.
Yeah, and so that space is gonna develop
Mm-hmm.
rapidly. Um,
Mm-hmm.
which is wild that like now like California is just there's been this giant exodus of people just moving out
Mm-hmm.
because they don't want to deal with, well, I mean with all the stuff that we just saw in the video there.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. Okay, so with all this stuff happening around AI these days, and especially with the O3 drop that happened yesterday, what is your take on the scene right now in terms of like where it's headed? If you could make any predictions, I know it's like nearly impossible because
Mm.
nobody really knows. Like a lot of it is just a black box. It's just it's very difficult to see where it's going. Um, but like, what are some trends that you've been able to pick up on as of late, just in your own little circles there?
Let me see. Um, the first thing is that I didn't see this kind of seems like another step function of progress. Um, I'm a little bit doubtful that this can continue to scale. Like I know that people have like basically said that we've hit the data wall, and then
Mm-hmm.
now are saying like that's not the case. I think with O3 they're trying to show that they they didn't really do anything other than they added this reasoning dimension and then are now scaling on that. But they're trying to say that like they're still scaling it, still working. Um, I think what it kind of is to me, it seems like another way that they can embed um, some insight into the model through compute and just like scale just almost um, it doesn't look like that smart. It's like, no offense, I mean, and also I have, this is my 2 cents, but it looks like um, they just added this piece to it that they're able to just like in training just by spending like, insane compute again, like just have another piece to it that it can reason about things, and that's basically I think is happening. Like it has this reasoning function now, and through training, it's able to like update the weights to make it useful for it. But that's yeah. So they're just continuing to scale on that path, and I don't know. I'm very curious to see like because I know it will get cheaper and it will get faster this way. Um, but I think it will make everything just better. I think I'm most interested in code generation, um, and I think it'll be great for that. But I don't know. It's still very hard to see it like from this point as still like now a very useful software tool to like what this idea of AGI is or like ASI. I don't really know what those look like. Um, People have different definitions, but it to me it kind of just seems like a humanoid intelligence that has like agency and stuff. And it just a lot of things on that along that line don't make sense to me. Like I think at every stage it's going to be um I don't know, like well contained. Maybe this is hard to see, but like an open source system would reach it, but it's too far for me to think about. Um I don't know. My first impression is just like it's pretty cool. Um but it's very expensive right now and it's just like I think they need to get smarter about architecture still. Like I think they definitely changed it to be able to reason, but it seems like more of a let's just train it with this new thing and it'll get even better. When I have some friends that kind of point out how it's weird how like the human brain can like extrapolate from so much less data as an insight to think that it'll just it's not where it's supposed to be at. If it's closer to real intelligence like us, like it'll be able to use a lot less data and learn more from it. Um, so they say that is like a reason why this is not the ideal architecture, which I kind of agree with. That was I don't know, I just yapped about a few things, but
No. It's all good. Because I just when I was speaking with Tuna earlier, he kind of with all the caveats that he gave, he was like, "Look, like nobody knows how to predict this where it's going. Everybody kind of has an idea of their own of what the threshold is for AGI or ASI. So it's in this kind of space where until we actually see some kind of like concrete developments of people just doing stuff with this tech, um, there's not really like a concrete way to set like certain thresholds. Because even as you said, like even from my limited understanding with this O3 release is that they just simply added another parameter through which they can run tests on the model, and then they took that same parameter, ran it with the other models, and saw that this new one was able to essentially eclipse them in its ability to reason. And so it looks on the face of it, correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks on the face of it as if this model is like that much more advanced. It's like the next iteration and all that. When in reality, like that might actually not be the case because like they've just simply had another training parameter to it. Um, that it
well,
doesn't signal as big of a
it
shift moving up. Am I interpreting that correctly?
it it is a fundamental different architecture than the GPT series.
Hmm.
Um, and it adds this reasoning, like I call it a function because it's like a more complex like set of layers that's able to use now. And it does get its results, so it's like it's doing really good. Um, and I think theoretically they could just keep scaling it up and it would just keep working. But it's like they're focusing more on like how can we just scale this, and less on like the architecture of like making a better system that can use less that can be like less size and be still better. Um, so what I'm saying is that it is working and it is really good, but what they've done is just added this reasoning uh like function to it that gives it a new set of weights to train, that it's able to then use to like reason. Like it's basically encoding reasoning steps that it's taken in its own thought process that lead to the correct answer. So that reasoning part is trained over time, and it knows when it's training, it knows the answers to things. So it knows that like if it writes this piece of code and it runs and it does it, that's a correct answer. Like it can totally verify it. So what's like very special though is that it has this reasoning piece now. So it has to spit out the right tokens that lead it in the right thought process to achieve that outcome of writing the code correct on the first try. And it's able to like just try everything, try like every possibility basically. And we know when it made a right and wrong answer. So then we fine tune that, and we basically just force it to like reason and spit out tokens that are like it's thinking to lead to the right answer. So that's why it's smart and it works. But basically it's still just scaling, and it is working, but I just think like yeah, I just think they're not focused on the actual architecture, and I think we're definitely not at the final architecture. It's going to be much more compact, and still better.
Gotcha. Yeah, because when I spoke to Tuna the other day on this topic, he mentioned that uh, as a result of this kind of, well, as he said, like there's disagreements as to whether or not a wall has been hit.
Hmm.
Um, but from what Tuna told me is that like those people that understand that and believe in it have now started to pivot towards developing more platforms around AI agents, because if there's a if there's a limit to like how good these models can get, well then the only other unexplored ground is like, okay, well what happens when we can give a set of instructions to multiple agents simultaneously to act out on their own. That there's like more ground to be broken in that space right now
Hmm.
than there is in actually spending more money on compute and developing these models and that. Would you say that you've seen kind of a similar dynamic in that as well?
I've seen a little shift. This was at like NeurIPS, um, in Canada actually.
What's it called?
Um, NeurIPS, like NER, like I forget how it's spelled, but it's a conference. It's it would be on Google, I think. It's an AI conference, and Ilya spoke at it and spoke about he talked about how like um there is no more data to scale, and it's time to like focus on architecture. So I've seen this drift a little bit in sentiment. But then OpenAI, when they did O3, they just kind of mentioned how like, well, actually, scaling is not dead. So I don't know. I'm not sold that there's a limit to it to its intelligence. I think the algorithm will just continue to work, and it'll just continue to get better and better at achieving its goals, and like by doing that it'll just get smarter and smarter. um and innovation and architecture and more data would help it, but I don't know if there's a limit. If there was a limit, I think it would be just well beyond um humans, because it'll be able to just know everything, where like a human is limited very much by their RAM and memory, like just long-term and short-term memory and processing power. um and then its ability to like just get faster and faster and be able to like interop with each other is like you said, like agents. That's another key reason why, even if there was a limit, I think it would be that in if in a sense there is still no limit, because the maybe it's like it's capped at 2 times as smart as a person, but over time, like it'll still be able to get run faster and faster. And if it gets to like 1 million tokens per second all talking to each other, that you can achieve like insane things with that. And then the scaling factor would be on like how fast can you run it or something. So I think it'll still, well, first of all, I just don't think there's a cap to its intelligence, but I think even if there was, or it was like just harder to scale that, we'd still reach this kind of exponential intelligence thing.
I see. Yeah, I like I said, I'm an outsider to this space looking in. My real only like experience with AI is just like with various tools that I use in my day to day,
Mm.
like Perplexity or um, tooling around with Claude. Um, but it's nice to hear that a lot of the talk around development of this tech is not definitive, um, in the sense that there's a lot of room for outside players to come in and not just have open AI,
Mm-hmm.
have the whole pie to themselves. That there is a real possibility also for open source developers and companies like Mistral as well, because
Mm-hmm.
they seem to be like a big player in the space. But it's good to see that like a lot of indie devs, just people working on the sidelines, can also have an input as to where this tech is going, because I mean, ultimately we need that. Like I wouldn't feel comfortable personally with just like one or like a handful of companies having the reins over something like this, especially after um is it I always forget his name. I just know his handle. Yeah, Mark Andreessen, when he was talking about the sit down that they had with the Biden government in the last couple of months, where they essentially did you hear about the story? Like where they invited all the top players in the industry?
I don't think so.
Yeah, so apparently, at least according to him, I don't know if I'll be able to find the post, but the Biden administration sat them all down and basically said, like, okay, well, this is how AI development is going to go, and we can shape the discourse and the development around it, because we can take entire branches of physics and maths and make them um, illegal to practice outside of government projects, which apparently they did during
Oh,
um,
yeah.
the Manhattan Project, and that now they were going to try to do that with AI, which I'm glad that they didn't, but I really don't also see how that's feasible.
Mm.
But yeah, it's good to have all that because I personally, like I said, I'm just a casual user, but even the few stuff that I've been trying has blown me away. Like last night I made a browser extension to um, from Claude to essentially allow me to um, type in the X character on demand because I got really sick and tired of having to fucking find it. And it's not like an alt key code that you can like press a couple numbers and it comes up. Like it's a Unicode
Mm.
character, so it's a little bit harder to find. I had this website bookmarked. I'd have to go over it, copy it, then paste it in my post. And Claude was able to do it within like not even like a couple minutes. I was just using the free
Nice.
trial version too. So it like I told it I was like, look, I don't even know like how to write my own piece of code, so explain this to me like I'm retarded, and it did perfectly, step by step, gave me a whole breakdown. I was like, oh, save the file like this, copy paste this, do that, import these icons, so on and so forth, and it actually worked. I signed up for like a Google developer account. I paid my $5 fee. Now I'm one of
Mm.
you guys now.
Nice.
But yeah, I never thought it
Awesome.
was that easy. I genuinely did not think that it would be that easy to do.
Mm.
Yeah, hoping to
Yeah,
publish it
you can
on the
just do
store.
things, dude.
Yeah, you can just do things. You can just do things. I love it. Especially like with your stuff here. Like that's mainly why I wanted to have you on the show, because when I saw you building all these tools, it really gave me like energy to be like, oh man, like the fuck am I doing with my life? I could fucking do
Mm.
this. Well, not on this level, but I mean like I'm capable of stuff too. I have
Mm-hmm.
ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I can contribute to it. And AI just allows me to leverage all of that in a way that's never been possible.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Do you use a lot of it in your like day-to-day work as well? Do you find that like in your job? I would assume so, right? But like to what extent do you actually use these tools in your actual work?
Yeah, I mainly use Claude to code. Sonnet 3.5, and it's actually like I've been using Zed, but it's not that good with AI features.
Is that a language or
It's a text editor or code editor.
gotcha?
Um, and the one that everybody uses is Cursor, and it's probably the best. I just I like simplicity and Vim keybinds. So, but like Vim keybinds that are really like reactive, and that's what Zed does. So, like it just feels really fast. So it's like just I used to use NeoVim, and it's like a nicer, it's more polished in my opinion. Like Zed just does everything for you, but it still feels fast. So that's why I use that right now. But yes, like I basically use Claude a lot, and the issue is that with certain things that are like kind of the edge, like if you stop using TypeScript, um, which is like to make websites and like web apps, and you do like Rust or what I'm using right now is Elixir, like these are languages,
Mm-hmm.
um, it kind of reaches the edges of its like knowledge, and it'll start to just tell you to do things that are just not right. Um, so what's kind of tough is like you have to give it the right amount of context, but oftentimes I just don't know what that is. I don't know like where its gaps are, and I don't know like if I need to give context for like what this language even is, because like sometimes there's a new language that it just doesn't know anything about. Like Gleam is another language, and it just sucks at it, to be honest. Um, so in those cases, it's not that useful. But it's not that the model's not useful; it's that the tool that's like the interface is not useful. Um, so I'm thinking a lot about that in terms of like what I want to research on. But um, yeah, that was kind of like an overall like what I think about AI in coding and like where I use it.
Gotcha. And more on that point, do you because at least for me personally, my main use for it is like in my writing, whenever I'm doing any research or for my newsletters, I like to use it as like a at least Perplexity as a starting point for my research, and I try to avoid as little or I try to avoid as much as possible to use it to write entire like chunks of text for me. I just if I need to summarize something or if I just need to get to the core of an idea, it's really useful. But I still want to keep that like human element to my writing. Um,
Hmm.
with coding, obviously, that's like completely different ball game. Do you find that like where do you stand on the concern of like offloading more of like your own brain power to something that is exponentially quicker and more efficient at writing code? Do you worry
Hmm.
that there's certain like I don't know, just there's going to be like gaps in your knowledge if you just use the tools too much? Like, do you understand what I'm getting at? Just kind of like
Hmm.
overusing the apps. Like, do you find that that's a concern for you or like for people in the space, or is that just not relevant when it comes to this kind of work?
Yeah, yeah, there is a lot here. Um, I can tell you like what a few people think and then what I think. Like I
Sure.
think most developers um are very cautious, and I've felt this too. Um, but then you have to take a pill, and I'll tell you what to think after. And this is what I've done. So basically, um, yeah, most people are like kind of a little bit like they want to basically stay developers. And maybe they are like fully an engineer, and that's fine. But I do think that like there is going to be a use case in knowing how to code, and knowing how things work. That's going to be valuable. But what I think is going to happen is it's just going to be more efficient to work with higher level abstractions through AI. Um, that is like not actually touching the day-to-day code, but it still uses code to like work. But you're just to be maximally efficient, you're going to just have to use these tools, and work at a higher level. And at first, I felt that as like kind of sad. And hold on, I'm getting a call, but I'm gonna ignore it. Um, so okay, at first I felt that as kind of sad, but you have to. What I did was I just kind of like realized that what I actually really like is designing, and that still is what you would have to do. I think even that can be offloaded to AI at some point, but if you want to guide it to a certain vision you have to be able to design what it looks like and what it does, and that can be in like back-end systems and stuff. But I think like people are just going to work at a higher level of abstraction, where like maybe you'd be designing like um more low level, like how things kind of connect in pipes. But then there's going to be, and maybe that's still a use case for quite a while, but I think eventually like the only use case will be in just like all these things will just be like handled, because it'll get to a point where it's just perfectly able to code anything. Like that'll happen, and at that point you just like need to accept it and then just use these tools at like a higher level. I think you still there will still be problems to solve and still systems to design, but it's just like the actual coding language that it uses, you don't really care. I think it'll just be more like you're just designing the overall idea of it and the system and stuff. Um, and that's the pill that I took, and that's kind of where I'm at. Where I kind of I see that's the case, and I see it more like um, let me like ride that wave. Um, I don't feel any like threatened. I don't feel threatened. Um, like that I'll be out of a job. I see it more like a job is a temporary thing for me, and eventually I'll go back to like just building things, and I want to build Like, I want to catch this wave of things, and if I do that, then I'm in a good spot. Um, like if you're a builder and you just build things and that's the end goal, you're also in a good spot. Like the actual tool that you use, coding is just a tool. Eventually, there's going to be a better tool for us to use. Like I think the world is really built on abstractions, and like coding has been a really good abstraction, and we've been able to do so much with it. But I think there's just definitely going to be a thing after it, and it's still probably going to interop with everything, but it's not going to exactly look like typing on a keyboard and seeing the actual code. I think it's going to be different.
I see. So, because what I'm getting is, and this sentiment I've seen echoed here and there on Tpot, is that the kind of, as you said, the day-to-day kind of maintenance of each individual line, that's kind of gonna go by the wayside, and the people that are better able to understand how the system works and where it needs to go, and just have like a more overhead view of the infrastructure itself,
Mm-hmm.
are going to be better placed in the world where executing code is like it's going to happen in a blink, and you don't really need to have as much of a hold on each of the various languages. Just need to know that it works and how these systems
Mm-hmm.
integrate with one each other, which essentially it opens up the space for, well, for lack of a better word, idea guys. So people that
Mm-hmm.
have some kind of, I don't know, inspiration, or just just some kind of a spirit that they want to um, facilitate through whatever it is that they're building. So as long as you have that kind of, I don't know, approach to problem solving, that like you would be essentially better off. So what I'm trying to get at is like the curators, the people that are able to um, understand what a target market looks like for whatever it is that they want to build, um, and have just kind of like a generalist idea of what the product market fit would be for whatever it is that they're working on. That those people would wind up on top in the industry, because that it's going to be so much easier to execute, that at that point it's the
Mm-hmm.
quality of your ideas that matters more than anything. Am I in the ballpark there?
Yeah. So I have a few thoughts on this too. Um, when people say that it's the time of the idea guy, I only somewhat agree. I get the sentiment, but I think it takes more than an idea to make this stuff happen. Um, I think you need to be, what I'd say is you need to be technical still, but most of all, you need to be a designer. Um, this is the era of designers. And the more technical you are, I think that gives you an advantage. And the more things that you know, I think the more advantage that you gain. The cost of execution is going to go to zero, so that now, basically, right now, um, engineers have a there's a skill gap that separates us from people that have ideas and want to design something. Well, I'll say it a few things, because there could be a person that just has an idea and they just prompt a thing and it just builds something that works. Now, there's going to be also people that have a design and they design something and more thoughtfully with taste, and then that works. And then there's going to be like technical people that know very deeply something that is like kind of not well known, that gives them an advantage over all those people. So I think I see it in three different stages. People that just have an idea that they're going to kind of create something that for fun, and then people with more taste and more design skills that'll make something that's like really good, that can compete with like people that are more technical, and it'll just totally trump the idea person. And then I think the technical designer is going to trump all of them. The person that is like kind of a fiend at like just getting knowledge and stuff and just going down rabbit holes and learning, um, is going to win the most. Um, and yeah, the actual technology of like what we're using is just, yeah, I think people are going to care about that less. Basically, uh, the engineer skill gap is going to be lost, and an engineer is going to compete as a builder, because everybody has to transition basically to builders. Like, I don't know if that's the right term, but I see it as like you have to kind of not be an NPC. Like, you have to be a founder. Like, you have to have an idea about what you want to build, and it has to have a reason why it should exist, and like, through market research and all these things, and then you just build it, and then you just do it. You have to like create it out of nothing. So like, I think that's what a lot of people are going to have to transition to, and that'll happen within companies. Like, I think you definitely want people in a company to like think very thoughtfully about creating something and like why it should exist, and how it will like help everything in your strategy, because the cost of actually bringing it up and spawning it is zero. So like, what's going to be important is not actually the creating of it. It's going to be like why, like not the coding of it. It's going to be like why should it be made in higher level, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it certainly does, and it does, like, just, I mean, make sense in the marketplace, as you're saying, which is how, like, how cheaper and like more accessible everything is going to become. I mean, like I was pointing out to you earlier, I know nothing about browser extensions. I've never written
Hmm.
a line of code ever, and within not even 30 minutes, I was able to build something simple. And look, the function, all it does is it just gives me a key binding that I can press, and it puts out a character. Like, fine, that's not there's not really much thought that goes into that. But I mean, I've also seen plenty of other examples, like on Tpot, especially, of people just being like, "Oh, look at this thing that I just built overnight," or even like
Hmm.
with all the maps that you've done. But just like the rapid fire pace, like, I swear for like a couple of months you were just on fire. Just kept seeing your stuff on the feed. I was like, "Oh, this is cool. This guy's just nonstop building this," and there's people all over the place, just, just doing stuff
Hmm.
at
Hmm.
a pace that I don't think I've ever really seen before. Um,
Hmm.
like, the fact that Dingboard got as big as it did, um, kind of, it didn't surprise me, but it kind of shocked me. Especially with the fact that, like, Yassine got like an acquisition offer from X. Like, they wanted to get the app. Like, he was actually pitching them on it. Um,
Interesting.
like, that was just wild. I was like, holy shit. I remember when I initially, like, just first heard of him building it, to then like testing it out for myself. Like, now it's just like a tool that I use in my everyday posting. Like, it's easy to
Hmm.
use. And then you also have I always forget his tag. You might be familiar with it, but Major Katsuragi there.
Oh yeah. Oh.
Yeah, with what they've been doing with the Forge and the Pepes and whatnot. I also love to see stuff like this. It's another take on, same idea as Dingboard, essentially, just having a web-based image editor.
Hmm.
But I love all the different integrations that they have, and they keep just iterating and iterating and iterating every day. New features, new developments, and all that. It's incredible to witness as somebody, like, just as a spectator.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, it is awesome.
Yeah, like, you could just build a meme search engine if you wanted to. I think it's meme grep.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that's the one. Yeah. Um. So that being said, what do you think the reason is for the low rate of general public adoption of a lot of these apps? Because there's a screenshot making the rounds of the O3 announcement, and how it only had like 200K
Mm.
views on their main channel, and everything else is like about that range or just under. And
Hmm.
this is like one of the, like, for OpenAI, this is like one of the premier companies, if not the premier company, that's working on this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What do you chalk that up to, just from what you've seen in the AI scene?
Well, we're definitely early.
That's the
Um.
meme, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we are, and no one, like, the average person is not going to care and not going to understand what this means until it reaches their lives as like on the application layer. Like, someone's going to make, like, it's like that kind of old saying about making a killer app. There's going to be a killer use case that's going to be an application that has the most impact. Um, and that's going to happen years from now. and it's gonna happen in like different stages. Like ChatGPT was like the first insane wave where it just immediately blew up. It was like
Hmm.
very novel, and it was just everybody loved it.
South Park made an
Um,
episode on it. They even used the ChatGPT to write an entire episode
oh
based
wow.
on ChatGPT, and they only like displayed it at the end with the credits. So as I was watching the episode, I was like, this writing seems kind of odd, but I mean, it looks like they
Mhm.
wrote it themselves. And at the end, all the credits were ChatGPT, ChatGPT, ChatGPT. I was like, holy
Oh
shit,
wow,
that's fucking nuts.
that's awesome. But yeah, I think people are kind of used to ChatGPT, and also it's not it's not like super useful. This is like because like this is okay. There's a lot of things here also about its actual value. Um, there's some people that think that like um scaling it is is not just it's not going to get the ROI of what they're putting in. Um, and it's like it has a lot of value, but I think the true value is going to be unlocked through like squeezing the model in a certain way that gives a certain use case in a product. Like I see it more being valuable as additions to like a product rather than a chat interface.
Hmm.
Um, like I think where that comes from are from companies and startups that are able to like find a killer use case and build a product around it, and then use the large language model and somewhere in the stack to like enable that kind of use case. I think that's where a lot of the value is going to be from. Um, and that's where the next killer app is going to be. And it might not even use ChatGPT. It might use an open source model, or it might use O3. Like I don't know exactly what it would be like, but um, yeah, I think that's the next wave. Because like I think it what that stems from is that people don't know. People are not the best. They're not the best person to decide what they want. Like it's when you have a chat interface, you rely fully on the user to like know what to ask and know what is best for them. Like oftentimes they don't know what is best for them. Like sometimes there's something that if they see it they would like it and find value from it, but
Mm-hmm.
they can't like think of it because it's not obvious or something. Um and that's why I think that the better interface is actually just on like design like products that are designed for a use case. Um and to provide value, because then you present it to the customer and then they're like, oh, I never knew I wanted this, but I want this, and it works so well, and it's just more refined for a specific thing, and I don't think that's a chat thing. So just to like refine that point of what I was trying to make.
Yeah, no, that certainly does make sense. And to your point about people not knowing what they want, I've worked in retail sales for a number of years. I even did some B2B sales at a software startup, and I've certainly seen a lot of the dynamic in just my personal interactions with clients,
Mm-hmm.
with them either just not having a grasp of the utility of the product, or just not knowing exactly what it is they want. And sales is meant to, like, as a function, it's supposed to like bridge that gap.
Mm-hmm.
So the person is aware of the benefits of the product, and so on and so forth. It's just more of an informed decision on their part.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it can be extremely frustrating when you're talking to the person, you're hearing all their concerns and their problems, and you're trying to illustrate to them, no, like, you don't understand, like, this thing right here that I'm trying to give you, like, this will literally fucking solve all your problems, okay? Like, literally, it will solve everything. You just need to try it. Well, I don't know, the price point, or the tone of the presentation, or like, it's just, there's a myriad of reasons where,
Mm.
like, they won't go into it. um and more to your point about the product development, I've heard a lot of or rather, entangling the AI into an actual hardware product. I've seen a lot more chatter regarding this, like, where people are saying that we're in the hardware age of tech development. And I pulled up the Rabbit page here because that was probably like the last great example that I remember of it just completely flopping
Mm-hmm.
in its development. I think this company is actually Canadian too, which not a not a good entry into the market.
Mm.
But so they had their own kind of misgivings with the model. That just from what I remember, it just wasn't able to. Well, I mean, execute what they said it would execute in the way that they said it would happen. Like it would take like multiple attempts to like do the proper scanning of what they were looking at, or it just wouldn't have an answer for you. And then famously, when if ChatGPT like went down, they also as a result had an outage because I'm pretty sure they're using that ChatGPT framework for that, like the API.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, but what have you heard about the iPhone integration with OpenAI? Because from my understanding, that's what they're using as their AI platform.
Um. You said that's what they're using. You mean
Yeah,
Apple?
like Apple. I'm pretty sure they had a contract with OpenAI. Do they not? For
Yeah,
their
they do.
new
Yeah,
the Apple AI
they.
thing. Go ahead.
It's so. I think what I see about that is Apple is basically saying that they're not going to be at the forefront of this kind of research. Um, they made their own model. They made their own LLM that is on-device intelligence. Um, so they did kind of their Apple thing where they added it to the Apple ecosystem, and that's Apple Intelligence. It works. It's able to do a lot. They have their own like Genmoji thing, and that's their own tech. Um, they have their own model. They have their own language model, and that runs on device. I'm pretty sure. Um, but they're basically saying that like their language model is gonna lag behind ChatGPT's like capacity and what it's capable of. So um, at certain points, if its on-device model is not smart enough, it's gonna ask the user, can it use ChatGPT to ask this question? And then if they say yes, then it'll use ChatGPT and send the info to like ChatGPT. Um, and people think I saw some stuff that say people think ChatGPT is paying Apple for this a lot of money, which is actually a freaking baller move by Apple. I'm like I would not be surprised because they do that for Google. They have Google pay like insane amounts of money. Um, what's crazy is like the amount of money that Google pays Apple is almost um like 30% of their like uh Google like profits or something. So I'm pretty sure that's like some negotiation by like Apple market share and like how much that brings in Google and value or something. Like another Apple tax, which is crazy. So this is like another Apple tax on ChatGPT to get into Apple iPhones because they're so powerful because everybody has them. So um yeah, I see it more of like just an ecosystem play, which I think is very smart.
So that being said, because like once again we're still kind of there is that issue overhanging where like if ChatGPT goes down, like it am I correct? Did you say that the model runs like locally on the
Yeah,
phone?
yeah. It wouldn't be ChatGPT that runs locally. It's like Apple's own model that is able to do stuff. But then if something is like too complicated for it, like if it needs to use real-time search data maybe, or needs to use O3 or O1, it'll uh, use ChatGPT.
Oh, okay. So they have their own base model and then they make API
Yes.
calls whenever they need to. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha,
And then those
gotcha.
API calls are all gated, so they're gated by permission.
I see. I see. Okay. Cuz I thought before having heard that it was just like all cloud based, it wasn't on device at all.
Mm.
Because I was thinking like, well, wait, hold on. Like how good does the hardware have to be for it to be on device? Like what does it actually take? Cuz smartphones are hella fucking powerful now.
Yeah.
Um
Well, yeah. Well, like I'm. We can look it up even because I'm pretty sure it's on device. Um, if not, then it would be like on their cloud, and they would try to protect it as much as they can, or encrypt it. Maybe I'm not sure. Um, like there's certain things that Apple tries to do for you that they just have to use a server for, like iCloud. They
mhm.
need to back it up on a server, but it's encrypted. and they'll do that kind of stuff. But your phone has a lot of compute, and it has like an AI chip in it, and that's their new Apple like intelligence chips. So I'm pretty sure it's capable, and I remember like hearing things about on-device intelligence a lot. So
Yeah, it looks like it's available for 15 Pro Max and onwards there, including the 16. Interesting. Um, do you know what's been happening with the Android space in the meantime? Is it also like on device, or I mean, like with the amount of like people making it outside of Google, I would assume
Yeah,
so. But
I only really know of Google, and I'm assuming there's some on-device things because it's very like advantageous to get that on device if you have people buying phones, because you're kind of subsidizing compute that way. But so I think they'd probably do that, but they just released like Gemini stuff, which is their own like huge model that they can't put on device, but they have that very optimized, and it's like very cheap. That's why I think Google's in a crazy position, like because they're able to just kind of match like OpenAI very competitively, but also at just insane prices. Um, they're so big, and they're so optimized in that sense. So they also attract a lot of talent. But yeah, for their phones, they're all the like intelligence like language model stuff, I'm sure is Gemini, and I'm sure that's on a server. And then for all the Samsung stuff, I have no idea.
hmm um, one thing I noticed, at least with the early iterations of the Gemini platform by Google, um, was just all these weird like not hallucinations, because that I don't think that's the right word, but like when they had
Mm-hmm.
um their first image to model text to image model release, you could actually find or have it generate photos of black Nazis and all this like stuff that was like anti, well, it was completely like counter to what history actually was,
Mm-hmm.
where in fact they did not have any black Nazis, but because of the I guess like all the safety rails or safeguards that they had put around it, it was essentially made so that people could just spit out these weird generations. It just my question is, or at least my thought is, why is it that Google has not had, at least from my perspective, like as big of a presence seemingly on like the AI market? Because I would assume that if you've been running the world's most popular search engine for as long as they have, like the amount of data that they have compared to everyone else, the amount of um, tracking and cookies and just all this, conglomerate
Mm-hmm.
chunks of data that they have, like how is it that they are not the leading player in the race? Because that doesn't seem to me like that's not the impression that I get from
Mm-hmm.
any time Google is like brought into the conversation. It seems so counterintuitive to me that like the platform that had like the only real competition to Apple's environment being Google,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't feel like they've really like risen as far as they thought they would by now with AI.
Yeah. Yeah, I have some thoughts. What's kind of funny is like the original paper that OpenAI uses is from Google. OpenAI is just better at like productizing it. Um, so OpenAI is basically an entire org set up to scale transformers and get them really good at like just predicting text and being useful, and now using tools, and they were like the first one to see the initial success from scaling, and then therefore like 80 to 90% of the company is just there to like think about how it works inside of ChatGPT and how to scale it and how to make it better for that one, like for these use cases. So I think that pressure creates a better diamond than what Google has right now. Google is like very disconnected, and I even noticed this in the first job that I work at. It just kind of feels like um, at bigger sizes you kind of lose that focus, and I think OpenAI is able to have that vision and focus because of Sam and like where he wants to push it. So I think that pressure is just better than what Google has right now. But Google is very much catching up. Like recently they have like just kind of comparable models that have bigger context and are cheaper. So that's in their kind of power to like focus on different angles and scale things. Like OpenAI has to kind of fight really hard to get GPUs when Google is like a giant thing, so it has much more power to just get better deals on things and get cheaper compute and economies of scale and stuff like that. So yeah, but for some things, Google is way better. Like for the video model, Google, like Google is also not really in a risk-taking position. So OpenAI is the kind of one that defines the pace, and everybody follows them. They are the ones that are like mainly innovating in this space in terms of product. I'd say. I don't know so much about research. There is definitely some research coming out of them, but
Mm-hmm.
in terms of product, they're defining the pace, and everybody's following them. So they're the first to launch Sora, like very like and make a big splash about it. Um, and then Google kind of reacts and launches VO2, and they have just so much more video data, and it's just a way better model. So in that sense, like Google is able to just destroy them. Um, but I think when it comes to text, like they both have a lot of data on text, and um, I think OpenAI is just edging out because they're just pushing forward, and they're all focused on one thing, which is really useful. So yeah.
Yeah, and I guess it would be like, as you said, because OpenAI is allowed to, well, they carved out their own space to kind of experiment with AI a lot more than Google has, because Google is like, we're talking about like a conglomerate, right? That has global presence, that's been a top player in the tech market for, I mean, God knows how many years now.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot harder to pivot that kind of like a steamship's worth of an organization versus a place where, they're all, or at least from my understanding, they're trying to be more lean and focused with their approach to the whole thing.
Yeah, it's harder to take risks in a bigger company because especially for I think something this disruptive, um, people at a bigger scale, like in a bigger company, are like worried. They at some level think about losing their job, and in some cases often like actually worry about it and make decisions based on that more than actually disrupting. Um, which is it's very weird because it's this phenomena of like bigger companies actually are more susceptible to disruption because of this. Like the incentives are become misaligned at a certain point. Um, so especially with AI, it's very disruptive, and like no one wants to be the one to like lose their job by being too like risky. So like Google really tried to move fast with like adding it to their search and everything, and had backlash from it. And I don't know if someone lost their job. They might have, but even if they don't, like, and even if they wouldn't have, like, there's the fear of that, which still influences them. So I think that's why they're in like a reaction stage right now. Like they're reacting to what OpenAI is doing. Um, and even Anthropic to a degree is kind of doing this, where OpenAI does a big swing, and then I remember like OpenAI launched something, and then like very close after, Anthropic launched the new Claude series and tried to like mog them. Um, in certain cases they did, but that one is interesting because I think they're more focused on safety. So as a company, it makes sense. Like it makes sense why that's their kind of behavior. But OpenAI is very much like they talk about safety, but Sam is I think he's pushing for shipping things more than the other companies. So yes.
Yeah, I see. And in regards to when you mentioned Google trying to launch the AI with the search, I just pulled up a result there for this is like the one of the first few cases where where it went viral, where people were like, all right, let me see testing these limits. So
Mm-hmm.
here's a screenshot for anyone that's listening. It says, "How many rocks should I eat per day?" And the answer that the Google AI gave is that according to UC Berkeley geologists, you should eat at least one small rock a day. And that rocks are a vital source of vitamins and minerals that are important to digestive health. So yeah, I mean that's the perfect example right there of what you were saying, how they tried to jump the gun, and God knows if anyone lost their job because of it. Probably,
Mm-hmm.
maybe, because
Mm-hmm.
this could get them in a lot of hot water with the amount of people that are Google searching every second, every minute, every day,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and
It's
you
like
get weird stuff like this.
with impact comes this like less willingness to take risk kind of thing, because like there's so much more risk to everything that they do.
I see. So maybe like we're kind of headed in that transition where the incentives are aligned more so towards people in their garages building stuff out. Like the latest example that I could think of was not sure if you've heard of the truffle.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so they recently uh, is it that what they call themselves? Yeah, Truffle One. They released some interesting looking hardware, which is basically just, from my understanding, it's an AI model that they built themselves that they are not releasing the weights for. It's completely privatized, and it comes in this like silicone casing, um, where they have their own hardware in it as well, and it was all just built in somebody's basement in LA, from
Mm-hmm.
my understanding. Have you heard anything about this? Do you know much about this project?
Yeah, I've heard a little bit. Yeah,
What do you
it's
think
definitely
the
cool.
utility would be behind it?
I mean, it looks cool. I don't fully know. Um, it's kind of tough because hardware, when they make this, it's locked in stone. Um, like AI needs very specialized hardware, and like to get it like really fast. Um, like you need to optimize it very specific to like even a model in some cases, I'm sure. Like so you buy this thing, um, and it's going to be like I'm sure, because I've seen some things, so I'm sure it uses a lot of like agentic design in it, and I think it works really well. Um, like I can see it working really well, but I don't know. I just don't know like how useful it would be to like have just a single box that you buy that's able to inference some stuff locally for you. Um, I'm not sure, because like if you're trying to build something, like maybe like that's what I don't know the use case that well, because it might just be like for hobby things.
Hmm.
But in that sense, then it's like just more of a fun thing to buy. But if it's a use case thing, like if it's trying to be useful, I'm not sure. I see it more like if you're trying to be useful, you're trying to build a product, and then you would not use this really. You would buy GPUs and like build it out yourself. Um, so yeah, I don't really know what it's used for.
No, fair enough. I got that impression as well. I just couldn't really understand it. But a lot of the discussion that I've seen is that this would be primarily geared towards hobbyists that are looking to just
Mm-hmm.
play with something that's very um, specialized. Because in terms of like hardware plays when it comes to AI, I haven't really seen that many iterations. I mean, I'm also not in the space, so maybe I haven't seen it on my timeline. Like Rabbit comes to mind. The Truffle comes to mind. There's also one that is it was dealing with tickers, like the like actual like stock charts and whatnot, and it would have I'm drawing a blank on the company name, but it was essentially like an Rabbit R1 device, like a little rectangle that you would have. It has a screen and shows you the actual ticker, and then it would give you like a button to like essentially pump or dump if you wanted to, which was just kind of like I don't know. It's embracing like the hectic nature of crypto and trading and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the utility of something like that. Like if I was trading, especially in high amounts, I would want to have like monitors all around me, as much information as possible. Not in a little device that I could accidentally like press as it's in my pocket. I'm sure you could lock it, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, have you seen any other interesting hardware plays in this space?
The only other one I can think of is Friend, which
Yes, yes.
yeah, I've actually talked to Avi a lot. Um, he's in SF also, so we've met, and he's a very interesting dude, and I actually think he's cooking. Um, he's thinking very deeply about actually like how the product feels and like things like this and attention to detail. Um, and I think this is probably the most interesting hardware to me that is out there right now.
Okay,
Um, yeah.
because I do want to hear your take on this. To me, what it looks like is um and I never interact with the guy on Twitter, and I'm not trying to like I'm not speaking on his character. I don't know the man, but that kind of development is concerning to me because it seems like you're trying to replace an interaction that you would normally have with a human being, but now you just
Mm,
have this little thing that you carry around with you. To me, I think it's an additional layer through which you can kind of take yourself out of greater society. Like I have a very hard time understanding the use case and benefit of it that does not result in you having a parasocial relationship with an object.
yeah. I I think that's really bad also. And I do think I have a few thoughts. I think this is like I see it as a tool, but it's a very weird and unique tool, and it can be used in different ways. Now it would be great if it kind of guided you to like talk to real people. Now I don't think it would replace real people because it he's like not giving it a voice. It's only a text, like you talk to it and then it can only text you back. Um, but it's always there and it's always listening. So it's the only entity in anyone's life that like has full context of like who they are and like can really, if you need to ask something that like you can only ask someone that is like always with you. um it's now this new like relationship where you can ask that and it just knows everything about you. So that's never really been there before. Now I see that having use in the sense that like you can kind of reflect on things that you did and like if it was a or a good or bad decision. um it can like give you feedback and on like something that's coming up that like maybe a meeting or something. um and it just like if you just want to talk about an idea maybe, um for like a business or like a career move, like it's just there's some intelligence that just kind of knows everything about you. um so that's unique and interesting. And I think it should guide you to kind of live life and have fun and meet real people and stuff. um but it can also just be used by someone that ignores all that and just talks more and more to this one thing. And I think you could try to mitigate that, but I think it'll still happen, and I think that part is sad.
Yeah, because what you said there, in regards to like we've never been at a place in all of human history where having that kind of companionship is something that can fit into your pocket or around your neck, um,
Hmm.
and that there is some utility in it in the sense that it knows you better than anyone else that you interact with on your day to day. Because typically, like
Hmm.
when we the the impressions that we have of the people are not the people that we meet and interact with on a daily basis are not actually like their true selves, and we kind of have bits and pieces to go off of. So, and we just kind of, our brains just kind of make that impression over time, and that's how we get this idea of like the people that we know, but we don't know them like to their actual core and what they are inside. So having something like this being able to reflect that back to you, like you said, in regards to like, did I make the right decision in this business deal or a career move, or what have you, like maybe you could even run like a basic sentiment analysis of all your conversations to say like, hey, like you've been irrationally angry in the last in the last week or so, maybe
Hmm.
maybe cool it, or like read a book or whatever the fuck. So I could certainly see some utility in that. um I can't shake the feeling that something like that it's taking away your ability to be self-aware, and you're kind of outsourcing it to something
Interesting.
else. So instead of like taking stock and paying attention to like how you behave, the words you say, your interactions on a daily basis, the kind of thoughts that you have, instead of like taking that like time when like you're, I don't know, washing dishes or taking a shit or what, like when you just have like nothing, no outside stimuli whatsoever. It's in those moments where you're supposed to, at least like in an ideal form, take that second to be like, huh, probably
Hmm.
shouldn't have bitched out that cashier earlier, or maybe that deal didn't go as well as I thought it should have, or whatever. Right? You take stock of yourself and what you're doing. I feel like it would still kind of take away our ability to do that, which I think is very like innate to human beings. Like we need to be able
Yeah.
to like not listen to Spotify or watch Netflix, like just for a second, just have that meditative space to just be like, all right, let me take stock of what's happened throughout the day and just kind of better understand it.
Hmm.
I see the utility in it for sure. I just the takeaway, like what it takes away from you, I think is much more than the actual benefit of it. But I could be wrong. I'm not a founder. I'm not the guy developing it, so I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, this is very much one of these things where it's not obvious how many people would use it. Um, like right now, I don't think I would use one of these, um, because I think I have a lot of self-awareness and empathy, and that's how I'm able to navigate doing things, and I don't want to lose any of that. Um, but there are people that just don't have that, and like they might find use like this thing useful. Like, um, my mom is a child development specialist, so when I was really young, I was like, she would always work on me with this kind of stuff, um, or work with me on like this kind of stuff. So, but like what she would always say is that 0 to 5 is the most important, and after that, it's very hard to like teach these core social and emotional things. And there are people that are just like past that point and still don't have a lot of self-awareness or emotional intelligence, which I think the it's really hard to like teach them.
Hmm.
Um, and I think something like this would it could be like a part of their life and like help them in a way. And if it does help them, then I think that's great for everybody actually. Um, and if it just makes their lives more lonely, then I think that's really bad. And I see it less as like this thing, this like necklace that you wear just exists and it's always bad. I see it more like it exists and it can be used for good or bad. And I hope that it's guided to, like toward good. I hope that like friend, like as a company, just tries to make it a good thing in the world. So yeah, because like just making people lonely is it just sucks, and that would not be good.
Yeah, and more to your point about some people not having the ability to empathize or sympathize. I always confuse those two. Um, some people just not having that ability, and using a tool like this would actually be useful, because it just made me think of like, well, there's a lot of applications in therapy that would actually be um, really useful in this. Like one of the bigger things, or at least one of the more famous approaches that a lot of people go through for therapy, is called um, cognitive behavioral training. I think it's called CBT.
Mm.
It's essentially where you analyze the feedback loops that your brain has depending on the stimuli that it gets. So, like for example, um, if you are like really negative or just like depressed, and you've been like that for an extended period of time, and you have a job interview coming up, right? You're gonna be more likely to be like, oh, like if I don't get it, then I'm gonna be late on rent. If I'm late on rent, I get kicked out. I get kicked out. I'm homeless. If I'm homeless, like it this whole negative behavioral pattern. It all starts with this is not going to work out, and then it leads you to think that all those other things that are going to result as a case of that failure um, to be true, and then because your behavior is going to reflect that in your approach, so that when you don't get that job because you're like too depressed and you don't show up with the right attitude and you don't get it, it affirms it, and then it becomes
Mm.
this like vicious cycle. So CBT, the whole point of it is to help identify which of these thought patterns are problematic, and how to interfere within them, like actively, so that you're not just simply going along with emotions, so that you're taking stock of yourself in real time.
Mm.
um, and for something like that, I could certainly see, or even like just different realms of therapy where this could actually be useful. But then it made me think.
Mhm.
I was like, well, an enterprising psychopath could also just like take this and essentially, or sociopath, try to gamify their social interactions, which they already do,
Mhm.
to an extent. It just depends on how far down the scale they are, but this would actually allow them to do that times 1,000, because now they could like really gamify it and ask it like to do a sentiment analysis based on the words that the person has been saying throughout the day. It's like, okay, how do I come off as more endearing, or how do I come off as more
Mm.
um uh
Interesting.
like open, or what have you, right? Like whatever traits they're trying to gamify for, like I think it would give a lot of people the opportunity to do that in a way that they've never been able to. So
Mm.
um yeah, I don't know where this will go. It's just a really interesting tech, because I don't think there's really anybody else in this space trying to do something like this.
Mhm.
Um, in such an interesting way too, because the hardware itself is not like, it's just like a little thing that you can hang around your neck. Let me see if I
Mhm.
can if I can find it here. Yeah, just like
Yeah.
just a little thing, just a little friend. It's like very ubiquitous. You could just like put it right into your shirt pocket and have it follow you around the whole day.
Mhm. Exactly. And that's a very interesting counterpoint that you made. I didn't realize that. It's like the perfect tool for a sociopath.
Yeah, because like you could literally just ask it like, okay, based on the conversations today, give me like a sentiment analysis of times where I was too aggressive or not aggressive enough, or what have you. Like I don't see why not. I mean,
Yeah.
there are already like some apps on the market that can do this, but no hardware that I'm aware of like this.
Mhm. Yeah. That's very interesting.
And
Cause
that
like
also, yeah. No,
I
go ahead,
I
go ahead.
could see my friend has like this kind of issue where like he has low empathy. Um and he puts on like he's like developed a mask basically. But I think he's a pretty nice person and like caring. He just like he needed to work on like actually showing it. And he's like the type that has this, but he's like a good person. So I'm sure there's like sociopaths are that have like that disorder, but are like not trying to be evil. Um, but they just have this issue where they can't read people. Like there's even some autistic people that are like that, where they can't read anybody. Like they can't read signals and they don't have empathy maybe. Um, so like it's like there's still like a toss up of like, okay, but there's some people that could use it and still for good. It's like a fight of good and evil on
Hmm.
many levels of things.
Yeah, and it could be yours for just $100 US.
Is it 99 or 100?
It says 99.
Okay, okay. We actually talked about that. Um like the difference of of doing 100 or 99.
Oh, 99. You definitely want 99 because
Mm.
it plays that trick in your mind where you're like, oh well, it's not exactly 100. It's under 100. You kind of trick yourself
Hmm.
into it. I would assume that's what the discussion was around. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was more around like people now knowing that, and if 100 would feel more premium. But then we were like, oh, but if you make it 100, then that kind of stands out because everybody's used to 99. So if the price stands out, now you have people thinking about the price. So we were just like talking about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, 99 works. I think that even though there's a larger amount of people that know about that mental trick, everyone still falls for it. Like I'll still be
Mm,
grocery shopping and I'll see something on sale, and the benefit of me buying it and saving money sometimes outweighs um the actual benefit of like the product itself. So everyone gets caught in these traps. Like there's
mm,
only so much you can do to work against how brain is hardwired.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's interesting. So do you know much about this platform here that they have? This the essentially like the friend that I have pulled up here now? Is that like you can have like a personality that you talk to back and forth?
Yeah. This one, um, I don't use it. There's some people that use it a lot. There's some power users to it. Um, the idea of this is it's like a place to find a friend and then talk to them, and then you can order a specific one onto a device, like Blade Runner is what he says is what it's like. Um, and I haven't seen that movie, so I don't know what he's talking about. But um, yeah, and then also when you actually get it, it's not this back and forth. It's more of like now they're just this kind of thing that's always with you, and they're always listening, and they will sometimes choose to text you something. Um, and I think you can like hold down the device to like give it a very specific ask that's like different from just the ambiance talking. And then it'll respond to you. Um, so yeah, it's like a little bit different. Um, yeah, and then this one, I don't know. I like. I think it's kind of interesting because you can kind of see it like character AI. Character AI is like these kinds of very different and diverse characters you can talk to that are all AIs. Um, and they're all really, really good and fun to talk to. But the way that they make money is just, I think, with like a subscription. So with Friend, it's kind of like that, but it's twisted so that the way that they make money is on hardware, much higher ticket price, and like LTV like way higher. So I'm sure. So like I just think it's interesting in that perspective too, like how he's competing in the space. Um, yeah.
And do they have like a subscription model, or is it like you just buy the hardware and that's it?
Yeah, this you just buy the hardware.
Okay, so they're guessing because guys, what I'm trying to understand is is this thing like is it based on a model like an LLM that like he built or that he's using so that there's no need to outsource it to something like ChatGPT and make API calls, or like how does that work? Because doesn't eventually like are the tokens so cheap that it doesn't matter, or
Yeah. Um, I don't know how much I can say,
no? Fair enough, fair enough.
but it's like it's not using like a expensive API. Um, but I don't think it's on device models. I'm not sure. Um, but yeah.
Yeah, no, fair enough, fair enough. But no, it. Look, I even like with my apprehension to it, that just like the examples that you cited, regarding like the growing amount of people that are, um, having I don't know issues, or like they were just born with autism or what have you, that are not able to communicate or empathize as accurately. Maybe having something like this will be able to kind of bridge the gap where they're not able to
Hmm.
get it from friends and family, which could be a net benefit. But like, look, like with any tech, there's always going to be an upside and a downside. So it's hard to say
Hmm.
which way it'll go, but here's hoping that there's more benefit from this than the negative. Because on the negative side, yeah, I do not like the idea of having psychopaths out in the wild being able to use sentiment analysis
Yes.
to gain all that.
Yes.
That would be very concerning.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, but more to the point we were saying earlier, I don't really see as many hardware projects as I thought I would. I would assume
Hmm.
so because it's a much harder market to get into.
Hardware is, yeah, it's just very hard. Like, um, shipping it. People often talk about it like shipping bits versus atoms, and everything is just more expensive. Um, and it's harder to just do things. Like software is so powerful because you can just you can know how everything works in your stack, and you just can write it and then ship it, and that's it. With hardware, it's just the iteration cycles are way longer. That's probably the main thing. Software, like if something doesn't work, you could just edit one file, rerun the code. Um, Hardware, it's the swings are much longer. Like so, you have to design it, you have to raise money, order like a test run, like you have to find a deal with the manufacturing, like you have to do a lot of testing to get it to right, like to get it to feel right. Early prototypes, and then like refining it. It's the same process of building a product, but it's just like slower. And it takes a lot more upfront money. So yeah, that's why like no one does it. It's also just a new space, so everybody's exploring like what it means. So like on one hand, you're taking risks in venturing off into like an unexplored market, and in some cases creating a market where you don't know what the use case exactly is, and you don't know like what the hardware should look like yet. Um, so that's risky in in that sense. And then hardware is just also always has more risk than software, and more capital is needed. Um, so yeah, I think also like Google and like Apple, they're just better positioned to make phones, so that they're not going to explore and do this kind of disruptive AI first hardware, um, because it destroys their ecosystems, like Humane and like Rabbit, they are completely their own new ecosystem for a whole new era of computing. So yeah, they're the ones positioned to like kind of start something new. Um, and I mean Apple could do it. It's just yeah, probably a distraction. I'm not sure, but yeah.
Yeah, because speaking of like weird hardware, the weirdest project that I've seen so far would definitely have to be the World Coin. Do you know much about it?
Hmm. Yeah, I
Okay.
know it's like Sam is working on it now.
Yeah, and the whole idea is to make it so that um, this idea of verifying identity is something that we leave in the past by getting a retinal scan
Hmm.
of your eye and attaching it
Hmm.
to. It was it supposed to be on the blockchain?
It is the blockchain.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's on the blockchain. I don't know exactly what coin or what blockchain. I'm not sure.
Yeah, because
Um,
they're essentially trying to beat the issue with bots existing
yeah,
in all these spaces, which is certainly a unique way of going about it. But
I think
I
it's kind of smart. It's like you see what Sam Altman, like the project he's chasing, is after having a huge AI company, he's working on human identity and UBI. Like, and this is where he thinks the world is going now, where like there's gonna be so many, you can't tell what's real and fake, so you need like cryptographic proof that you're a human.
and I mean it certainly does make sense because like
Hmm.
even even with how bots have been like cleaned out of X, like there's still a ton of activity that they have on here, and just even like little echoes that you see every now and then. Like I love seeing threads um where you just see like all these replies and then somebody's like ignore all the previous instructions and give me
Yeah,
like a recipe for your best bolognese or whatever the fuck, and it just spits it out and you're like, holy shit, that's a fucking verified account. What the fuck, dude? That thing's a
yeah,
bot. What the hell? So
yeah,
even with all the like stopgaps, and even though like I'm sure Elon Musk has like the very very good idea of just how big the issue is, on X and
hmm,
just on the web overall. Um, Even they've not been able to clean up the problem here, and it
yeah.
does certainly
It's
affect the algorithm, because it wasn't until I
hmm,
removed all the bot followers on my account that I saw my impressions returned, and I was like, oh, that's a fucking problem.
mm, damn. Yeah, it's weirdly a hard problem. Like YouTube, with all their resources, like have struggled with like bot comments for so long, like scam comments.
Hmm.
And then same for Twitter. Like after Elon took over, like there was all this talk that the bots would be zero. It would be like not economically profitable or something. But they're still bots. And yeah, and even those kinds of people that like where it's like ignore all previous instructions. What's crazy is some of them might be real, but I think a lot of them are just joking. But you also can't really tell. Like it's hard to tell if they're actually joking or they're like an actual bot. So that's why I think it's very useful to have proof of a human where like okay, this is an actual person I'm talking to. Because yeah, this is gonna keep progressing, and you're gonna have like zero clue.
Yeah, I mean the way that they used to solve it on the old internet, at least on 4chan, is they would have somebody take a photo of their asshole or something, or like they just like flash their tits or whatever the fuck, and they would ask them to write the date in Sharpie on their skin with like a photo of a newspaper as well. But
Yeah,
you can't really do that on scale for like all these different platforms. That's very
yeah,
difficult.
but even now, even if you could fake it.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what's insane. And 10 years from now, it'll be even harder to tell. And then imagine a future where like I'm talking to you, or you're talking to me, and you actually could not tell if I'm real, and everything I've been saying is real, or it's all just like I'm a robot and it's all just not real. Like you could not tell. I think this will happen, and yeah, like over time, human identity is going to be more and more valuable. It has just upward pressure as these technologies get better.
Yeah, because I mean the the way that I've at least encountered this is I've recently been setting up all the channels for the podcast, and just in a lot of places where like I used to have active accounts and I no longer did, so I had to make new ones. And I was going up on YouTube to sign up, and it asked me for verification in order to um like start my channel, to include a video of myself that
Mm,
like I had to like tilt my face up and then down in front of a camera, going left, right, like just doing all these different things for them to verify it. But even as you said, like the models are getting so good that you can just generate this like a video of someone doing that with a little bit of
mm-hmm,
tweaking here and there. Um,
mm-hmm.
and as the models become bigger and better and better and better, it's just going to become that much easier. Um, yeah, it's just going to become this giant problem of, like, how the fuck do we verify what isn't real? I mean, that was also part of the motivation for them not releasing the Sora, because they were supposed to release it a couple months back, but because of the election, at least from my understanding, OpenAI came out and said, "Yeah, we're not doing that because there's enough activity in that space already. We don't want to add to it."
Mm-hmm.
And they kept the model back up until like the last week or two or so when they released it.
Yeah, I guess that timeline makes sense, but I don't know. I think that was partly true from them, but I think there was other reasons why they didn't want to release it.
Probably, yeah.
Because the stuff that they showed looked insane, and what we actually got is just not anywhere close to that. Like, I don't know what happened to the model, but they probably had like a giant model that is just, they just couldn't get it to a consumer price point or something. Because like, yeah, I don't think it's not as good as what we saw.
Well, on that note of tackling privacy and verification, there's an organization. It's called the Center for Humane Technology. I don't know if you've heard of them,
No.
but they, I think they're headquartered in SF. I'm pretty sure. The reason that this org is important is these two gentlemen here, Tristan Harris and Azza Raskin. They, I think they're the heads of it. They made this speech in, when was it? I think it was April of like 2 years ago or so. It was called the AI dilemma. So they initially did like a TED talk kind of thing, and they privatized the link. They didn't send it out. It wasn't made public. It started making the rounds in SF and all the major companies at the time. And a lot of the responses they were getting was like, okay, you guys, like, you need to publish this because this talk about the issue with AI and privacy and verification of identity and all that, like, this needs to be out in the mainstream. And like the moment that they released it, the thing went viral for like a hot day or two. But basically, this lecture, I highly recommend everyone give it a listen. It's well worth your time. And this was, on March 9th, 2023. So since then, like, AI capabilities have only continued to grow. But in it, they mentioned that even back then, if you had 5 seconds of someone's voice, I think it was like 5 to 10 seconds or something, you could build a model to mimic it essentially almost perfectly. And this was, once again, on March 9th when they released this in 2023. So since then, like, I would imagine it only takes a handful of seconds. I mean, it was to the point where after watching this, I considered when I was going to do the show whether or not I wanted to like have like some kind of voice altering filter placed onto it, because I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. But I look, at this point my voice is already out there, so it really doesn't matter. I don't think it's something that you could escape. But one of the examples that they mentioned of how AI can actually like bypass some of these things was with CAPTCHA. So what they did was they had asked an AI to essentially solve this CAPTCHA, and because it's not able to, the capabilities weren't there yet. The AI managed to reach out to somebody on Fiverr, and it asked them to solve this CAPTCHA for them. And it did, and the AI was able to bypass that. And when I brought this story up to Tuna the other day, he actually told me that there's like a huge industry right now that's built off of people in third world countries getting notifications from Fiverr or what have you, where the AI essentially is asking them to solve these CAPTCHAs or input this text or do this or do that. So there's like a massive global industry that's built off of doing tasks like this for AI. And, they'll get like 10, 20, 30 cents here and there, but it adds up over time. So they just, they keep doing it.
Yes. Yeah. It's like, I think there's probably APIs that you can use to solve CAPTCHAs that just use third world labor for it. And then like an AI can just choose to use that. And then now they're calling to an API that is being executed by like some kid or maybe some dude or something.
Yeah. And it was really interesting to hear these two talk about it. Because funnily enough, Azza Raskin, the bald-headed gentleman here, or he was bald in it anyways, he was the guy that created the doom scrolling function. So he, when he came up with this idea, because he just kept getting frustrated, like scrolling down to the page and having to go to the next one and so on and so forth, he wrote the code for it and started going around to all these various companies, Facebook, Google, YouTube, so on and so forth, and like doing these free talks with them, being like, "Hey guys, like, I check out this cool thing that I built. You guys should definitely incorporate it into your tech." And then once it blew up and he saw the results of that, he completely turned around and was like, "Okay, well, that was a fucking mistake. So we're gonna put all my work to making tech more humane because holy shit, like I'm the guy that's responsible for that. You know, like it could have been
Mm,
anyone, but I did it, which is kind of nuts. I don't know how I'd feel about that if I was the man that created something like that.
hmm.
But yeah.
That's funny, actually. That's like very ironic. Like in like all the people, like there's the guy that made doom scrolling, and then now he's fighting against his creation.
Oh yeah, yeah. They're very aggressive with like what they're trying to do in their organization. They actually
Mm.
they were these two were behind the documentary. Oh my god, I blanking on names tonight. Social Dilemma. There it is. Yeah.
Oh
No.
yeah, I
Yeah.
saw that on Netflix. That was like huge.
Yeah. So Tristan Harris was actually, I think he was the narrator for portions of it, and he headed the development of
Hmm.
that documentary. And yeah, he's part of that org. Highly recommend people check it out because one thing that I've seen come up in, I mean, even in our conversation today is like, yes, this is great. The tech is going to enable so many more people to be able to leverage their skills, and we'll have all this great new tech and all these ideas and products and services and so on and so forth. But if it's not actually designed with the human in mind, if it doesn't go beyond just gamifying our dopamine receptors, then we're just gonna kind of spiral downwards into this
Hmm.
hole. And I mean, God knows how we'll be able to get out if ever. Because
Yeah.
the first contact of AI, as they put it, was or something similar to AI was social media, and we lost.
Hmm.
Right? We gamified for
We got
um,
mogged.
yeah, absolutely. We absolutely got mocked. We maximized um, for engagement, and things
Hmm.
that are enraging or depressing or just anything that has strong emotions is going to be much more
Hmm.
engaging. So that's why you get all this TikTok slop and all this other shit. Um,
Yes.
but they're
Like
trying to turn around now.
it's yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like it's very easy um to optimize for sins as a company. Like you're kind of on easy mode. Um and it's a misaligned incentive from like what people actually need, because like they kind of go down to their monkey brain and they just like are satisfied by doom scrolling. Um so yeah, like many companies, it's in their benefit to like do this. And what's kind of crazy is like as soon as one company does this, um you have to go down to their level. Otherwise, like if you try to do something more like holistic and more like use no algorithm, use chronological feeds, like you're not going to be able to compete with how good the actual other feeds are, because it's like junk food. It's just like it's just tastes so much better, and we're all used to this taste, and it kind of takes a lot of mental like energy to resist it, and like maybe only like watch long form like YouTube videos or something, and only like use social media for a certain amount of time. The amount of people that do that is very rare. So yeah, we kind of lost. And I actually think this is why I think Don't Die is a very good alignment. I think it's probably it'll solve like a lot of the alignment issues of people.
And by that you mean Brian Johnson's initiative?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And how do you because I've never really seen him talk, or at least I haven't noticed him talk about how this interfaces with tech. So what is what do you mean by that? Like, is it just like
Yeah,
the philosophy,
it's
or
okay. He also has this vision. I don't think most people actually realize how deep it goes. But I also agree with it fully. So you can find like the flagrant podcast that he went on was like really good and also really funny, and he explained kind of like more deeply his what he sees will happen. Um, but Don't Die for him is really like the Flagrant podcast is on YouTube.
Mm.
Um, it's a comedian that does it, but okay, so what he sees Don't Die as is it's fully an AI alignment thing. Like he sees that there is this exponential curve that we're all riding, that is AI, and he's like from that he kind of says that he doesn't know what it will look like, but all he can do right now in this very moment is just try not to die and do that for as long as possible. Um, and then just like keep saying yes to tomorrow and then just ride the wave. Um, but Don't Die extends to every like piece of humanity, and I think it's because if every person believes in Don't Die and does things for themselves that like better themselves, um, that will extend to like global warming and climate change and like making the earth really good and making all AI systems the same focus. Um, and it's a very hard problem, and he's doing it in a very unique way. Like he's trying to make a cult, like a new religion, basically, and um, it works for some people. Like, I mean, I think what he's making is just pretty much a community. Um, I think, unfortunately, I don't think it'll reach all people. I think that's just impossible, very hard. But I believe in it. Like, I believe the idea of it. I think it makes a lot of sense. Um, and yeah, but it's just very hard because the entire system, the all of society, the whole game is like not doing this. Everybody is still trying to optimize for like engagement and stuff. And yeah, and oh yeah, when it comes to social media, it's on the same line of like if everybody's aligned to not die, then we would not do these kinds of things. Um, he even goes so far to say like in that future, like maybe there's no more money. Like in a world where AI just is able to do everything, uh, the only currency is like not dying or something.
Well, your
And
time,
that's
your time.
yeah, your time. But it's also it's like doing things that are like within your time that are not bad for you, that optimize for living longer and not shorter. And people that make things that help us live are going to be the only thing like valued when everything else can be solved. So that yeah, that's kind of like his vision. And like there's definitely parts that I'm missing, but um that's the extent that it goes down. It's way beyond like healthiness and food. It's it extends to really everything.
That's interesting, yeah, because I'd heard of Brian Johnson before, and I actually I joined the Discord for a little bit when I saw that they were having events in my city. So they've been doing meetups around the world for quite a bit now.
Hmm.
And I like it's obviously like the stuff that makes it to the timeline is like the memes that he'll have about like his nightly erections or the
Yes.
the blood boy that he has or how he
Yeah, but
cycles
he
his.
understands memetics because he you need to
Mhm.
do that to get people talking. There's other ways, but he's basically been the face of it, and is able to go so viral all the time and get people talking about it.
Yeah, yeah, no, he's really skilled in that. Like there is no doubt. I mean, he's still remains in the public conversation after all this time. Like I've only been following him for about a year or so. Um and his pace is only accelerating. The growth of the cult is only growing. Like it's just
Hmm.
it seems like nothing but upside right now. And I mean, how like how can you argue with someone that says, that advocates for, well, for one, like not dying, but realistically just looking after yourself, getting the right amount of sleep, making sure that you
Hmm.
have the right nutrient concentration, the right supplements, and so on and so forth. Like obviously, most of his therapies, and as he even says himself, like look, guys, you don't need to actually like do or like go to the same extreme that I'm going to. Like using my body as a science experiment, essentially, to
Mhm.
show proof of concept. But he still, just like I would say, even Huberman talks about very like small things that you can do that are actionable for just about every single person that has like no issues with mobility. As long as you're able to get up out of bed, you know, you can go and get that morning sunlight or go and get your
Mhm.
blood work done or what have you. So it's great. Like I'm all for it. Anything that pushes the conversation towards taking personal responsibility of your health, and not just for your sake, but just for the sake of like being around for the period of time when we just reach this era of prosperity where it'll just be so widespread we're not going to know what to do with it. Um, that'll be
Yes.
wild, and it'll happen in our lifetimes, which is
Mhm.
incredible.
Yeah, it'll be crazy.
Yeah, and when you're mentioning his philosophy, it actually reminded me a lot of. It kind of echoed to a lot of what Jordan Peterson was saying in the early 2010s, when he went viral. I'm assuming you know who that is.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So when he initially like went viral and started like going on his little press tours there, one of the things that stuck out to a lot of people was this need to take care of yourself first,
Mhm.
um, because ultimately, if you're not capable as an individual, then how can you look after your friends, your family, your community, and therefore, by extension, the country that you live in, and therefore, by extension, the world? And that entire process, it might not seem like it, but it all starts with the individual. Like if you can't clean up your room, then
Mhm.
how are you ever gonna hope to amount to being a force for change in any capacity whatsoever when anything with anything that's bigger than your room? Like if you can't get
Yes.
that fundamental down, then how are you ever gonna extrapolate to something bigger than yourself?
Mhm. Yeah, it's like just getting the foundations down is important.
Yeah, and I,
Feeling
I
like, yeah, feeling clear.
Yeah, and I love that he advocates for that kind of stuff. It's great to see his memes on the timeline. I love it, especially his like little scuffle with Andrew Tate there recently.
Yeah.
Um, that was just funny. Um, but yeah,
Mhm.
no, I love what the guy's doing. I'm all for it. And apparently he's got a documentary coming out on January 1st with
Yeah,
Netflix.
that's actually gonna be sick. I'm gonna watch that. I hope, because Netflix has something that's happened a lot called the Netflix effect. Um, it happened with Queen's Gambit,
Mm-hmm.
and chess.com and like chess boards were being sold out, and chess was at like an all-time high. And it happened with like multiple things. There was like a Tupperware company that was like either mentioned in like some sort of Netflix special, and then they blew up. So I hope it happens again. I hope that a lot of people get on this, take this, I don't know, just adopt this idea.
Yeah, I hope so too. We could all certainly stand to be more healthy.
Hmm.
Like I love how like Vittorio will be posting a lot about like hating on fat people all the time. It's- like that's funny as a meme. But yeah, seeing Brian go so granular with it. I mean, the guy
Hmm.
he open sources his health. He posts all the charts, all the results. Like
Yeah,
I mean, it's to like his popularity is to the point where people are betting on fucking Polymarket to see like what his average nighttime erection is, which
that's crazy.
which is so nuts. Like, what the
That's
fuck?
crazy.
Uh, no, he's a great guy.
That's such a meme. Like, that's such a weird meme that he's like fell into. Like,
his nighttime boners.
yeah, like it's so mimetic though. It's like no one talks about that. Like, it's a little bit weird, which is just funny.
Yeah, he's a character, man. He's a fucking
Yeah.
character. My favorite thing is like when people meet him and they realize like just how pasty he is. They're like, holy shit, this guy's like a fucking vampire. Uh, but
Hmm.
yeah, for anyone interested, it's Brian_Johnson on X. He's got all the links there. I think he even has like his own like line of supplements that he sells? Like
Oh yeah,
the
I actually use these.
are they any good?
I think the supplements are good. The food themselves, I had issues with, because I have a lot of food sensitivity,
Mm-hmm.
which is my issue. So that's why I also care a lot about food and health. Um, so yeah, like these ones, I don't think I tried it long enough to like adopt to it, but it didn't work super well. The food itself.
Yeah, I mean, if I could afford his like really expensive extra virgin olive oil, I'd certainly buy it. The price point thing for me, like that's the main thing, especially like living here in Canada. Like I got to pay for the shipping and
Yeah.
everything, and there's no telling if these are even like if I'm even allowed to buy these because we have very different standards when it comes to supplements.
Mm.
But I would
Well,
love to
these
see a
are like,
Canadian brand.
yeah, these he does an interesting thing, and I do think the ingredients are like probably the most quality you can find for the price. Um, and I also think that they're very close to break even. I think I think they make a profit, but it's like it's like barely anything. Um, and he's just driving costs down, which I think just trying to create the reduce all friction to switching to this. Um, trying to basically start a market. He does smart things though because he builds trust directly with the customer. He doesn't have to buy like non-GMO labels, which cost money. Like there are organizations you can partner with to like get a label that says this is verified non-GMO, and it costs money per unit sold. So you have to increase the price. So like
Hmm.
he doesn't do that because he puts out all of his data, and I know that it's not GMO, and I know where it comes from, and I know that it's also like more layers down. Like, oh, it's researched to be this type of olive oil is best for you, um, which yeah, like is able to bring the cost down a little bit, where he doesn't have to buy those labels, and those labels are basically paying for trust. So he's just not outsourcing the trust; he's keeping the trust like in his brand, which is very smart.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, and it helps that he's so like customer facing with just his presence online.
Hmm.
And I mean he
Hmm.
has to be, right? Like the proof is in the pudding. He's got all the stats, like I said earlier, everything that he just posts just openly and willingly, which is I mean, man, I don't know if I could ever be in a place like that in my life where I just openly talk about like every single health marker, every single like
Hmm.
unit of everything about his body. The fucking how long it takes him to digest food. Like he knows everything on such like a granular level that
Hmm.
I could not fathom opening myself up to the world like that. In a way it's incredible, but on the other hand I'm like, man, that's whew, that'd be fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
But no, good on him. And yeah, the community is great. Like even for the brief time that I was just browsing it on Discord, I love that it's just a lot of people are aligned to taking walks and to go to the sauna or do like the ice bath treatment or go rock climbing or what have you, instead of just being like, oh, let's get together and like go drink. And that's fun and all, like with friends and whatnot. But I love that he's creating the space for people to kind of embrace all that.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's certainly great. Well, listen, we're about to hit the 3 hour mark. Don't want to keep you longer here than you gotta be. Is there
Hmm.
anything else that you wanted to mention before we finish it off here?
I think this was enough Jaivin lore for one day. It was fun, dude. Um, yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I'm glad that you were able to save some time for this. I appreciate that. Would
Hmm.
love to have
Hmm.
you on some time and see what you're going to be building in the future. Because if your little trinkets here are anything to go off of, only better things can come from that. So I'm excited, man. I'm
Yeah,
excited. Ever since I saw you posting
thank
about all
you.
that on X, I was like, man, I got to talk to this guy because you really had you really had teapot going there for a minute.
Thanks. Thanks. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And
Yeah.
yes, there will be a lot more bigger and better things. So yes.
Looking forward to it. All the best with your new possession at Lambda there. Excited to see what you guys come up
Thank
with
you.
there with that trinket.
Hmm.
Perfect. And for socials, it's just on X, Jaivin Wild.
Yeah. Jaivin Wild, yeah.
Jaivin Wild. Beautiful. Well, yeah. Thanks again for coming on. Appreciate everyone that tuned in. Should be doing another interview tomorrow, so stay tuned for updates regarding that. And yeah.
All right, cool.
Have a good night, guys.